Close the doors of your mind. Close the gates of your mind. Close the gates of your palace, your ba'ith, your ahal, your ohel, your tent, your mishkan, your mikdash, your hayikal. The body that you live inside, the body that you must govern by the Ruach Kadash, the body that you must govern by the bar of Yahuwah. So every thought and every understanding, Bina Hamad Da'ath, and every thought that exalts itself against Yahushua Mashiach must be put under his feet, that he may govern your inner man and your inner being and sit on the throne, the throne inside of you, that one may be able to understand what it means to be governed by one being, that the one Debar may be governed, even as the Son, the Yahuwah was in the Son, reconciling the world to himself, that all man and woman may walk, even as he walked, who did no sin, no kata, no kata'ah, no saneh toward Yahuwah, neither was deceit found in his mouth. For today we acknowledge the one who made all the har of the earth, all in the nahar, the rivers and streams under the earth, the rivers and streams on the surface, and the rivers and streams that flow from his throne, that you may have rain and snow, that his tears may flow down on you, that you may know what it means to be washed from your filth continually. So we live in this world, we are not of it. But to live in the world, one must be continually washing themselves and cleaning themselves, or you will be corrupted by the very things around you continually. So as we move forward in the truth of Yahuwah Elohim, we move forward in his righteousness, in his kindness, in his truth. For his truth will make you free. His amath will make you free. Only if you allow it. Only if you allow it. This is the book of Psalms, Tahalim, chapter 39 and verse 1. The book of Psalms, Tahalim, chapter 39 and verse 1. Psalms, Tahalim, chapter 39 and verse 1. And I said, I will guard my ways that I may not sin with my tongue. He said, I will guard my ways that I may not sin with my tongue. And I will guard my mouth with a muzzle, so long as the wicked are in my presence. See, this is the type of understanding you got to have within yourself. Because if it's wicked people are in your presence and you ended up saying things that are raw and evil, I assure you those wicked people and those evil people will remember everything you said, because everything you said goes right into their consciousness. They do not reject it, unlike a righteous person would. And guess what? I was mute and silent. See, this is the part where you have to understand when to be mute and when to be silent. I held my peace to no avail. And my distress grew worse. Why? Because now you're starting to understand. You say, why my distress is growing worse? Because I'm holding my peace and I am silent. Why? Verse 3, my heart became hot within me. He said, man, I became hot within me. It was getting real hot inside of me. And I mused, I looked upon, and the fire burned. Then I spoke with my tongue. See, when you start to really master yourself and your tongue and what you say, then you'll start to master when to speak and when not to speak. Because the fire has to burn within oneself first before you start to utter things out of your mouth. That's why he says, I called you to be a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a Kudash nation, who show forth the halal of him who calls out of darkness into this marvelous light. But how can you have a marvelous light when nothing is kindled? When no fire is burning? Because you can light a fire on the Shabbat. Only the Kahan could light a fire on the Shabbat. So if there's no fire kindled within oneself to speak, what fire are you kindled? But it says, O Yahuwah, make me know my end and what is my measure of my days. Let me know how fleeting I am. He said, please let me know. Because everybody wants to know how long they're going to be here. But you don't know. Behold, you have made my days a few handbreadths. He's like, man, time goes by, right? But he said, you made my hand a few handbreadths, and my lifetime is as nothing before you. He says, it's nothing. He says, it's nothing before you, right? So this is the book of Bereshit, chapter 3, and verse 17. Bereshit, chapter 3, verse 17. Bereshit, Genesis, chapter 3, verse 17. And to Adam he said, because you listened to the voice of your Isha, and have eaten of the tree of which I commanded you, you shall not eat. Cursed is the ground because of you, and in pain you shall eat of it all the days of your life. He said, it's a bone. You're going to eat it all the days of your life, because that's Yahuwah's judgment. Thorns and thistles it shall bring forth you, and you shall eat the plants of the field. But by the sweat of your face you shall eat bread, till you return to the ground. For out of it you were taken, for dust thou art, and dust you shall return. Right, you're going right back. He said, you made your life like a handbreadth. You're not even here that long. And that's how short this life can be. Right? But then he says what? This is Proverbs chapter 3 and verse 17. Mashali Proverbs chapter 3 and verse 1. Proverbs chapter 3 verse 1. Proverbs chapter 3 verse 1. My son and daughter, do not forget my teaching, for the commandment is a lamp and the teaching is light. But let your heart keep my commandments, for length of days and years and life and peace will add to you. Will they add to you? So if you want some more life in your life, I want more life and length of days. And let your love keep the commandments. Because Adam, there's already a predestinated tone and vibration that you are headed to. And there's no avoiding it. Verse 3, let not steadfast love and faithfulness forsake you. So you got to have a haba, bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablets of your heart, right? So why is that important? It's all important. So this is the 7th yom of the 6th month. So we look at the 6th of the Aleph, joint, secured, tent peg. Why? Because we're getting close to the tent peg, we're getting close to dwelling in booths, sukkah. But all these are a part of the transformation. Knowing that on the sixth day, he created Adam in his own image and likeness. And gave him authority, or gave him Dama, or the fish of the sea, the fowls of the air, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, the Ramiz, the God, the Bahima, and the Oath. And all this is all part of it. And this is the understanding you have to come inside. You have to allow this transformation to take place in this 6 months. But this is the sixth. When you look at the 6th day, when Yahuwah made Adam, you have to let that transformation take place within yourself. Why? Because this is important. Because everything has a reason and everything has its purpose, right? This is Yeshayahu 1, chapter 1, 1 through 3. Hear, O Shamaim, and give ear, O earth, for Yahuwah has spoken. He said, Yahuwah has spoken. He said, hear, O Shamaim and O Aydah. So that means the Rakia, the firmament, the Shabai Shamaim, the 7 Shamaims, where each Shamaim have a throne, and going to the left and the right are the people praising Yahuwah. Then you got the Rakia, you got all, and the earth, and those things under the earth. In the Tartarus, in Gaia, in Tartarus, in the lower parts of the regions of the earth, and the Sheol, even the people on the surface of the earth. Right? It ain't just. It says, hear, O Shamaim, and give ear, O Aydah, for Yahuwah has spoken. Children I have reared and brought up. You brought up children? He said, I brought up children. Yahweh, I brought up a family. I brought up a family. He said, I reared them up too. And brought up, but they have rebelled against me. He said, all my children have rebelled against me. All my children have rebelled against me. But guess what it says? The ox knows its owner, and the donkey its master's crib. Right? So that word for ox is shore. Right? Is shore. Right? Is shore. That word for ox is shore. Is a bull, a head, or cattle, for plowing, for food, a sacrifice, a wall. It says a cow, a wall, right? But that's what it means. The ox knows its owner. So why is that important? But because it says, I have nourished and brought up children, they rebelled against me, right? So this is the book of Psalms, Tahalim, Psalms chapter 50 and verse 1. Tahalim, Psalms chapter 50 and verse 1. 50 and verse 1. Let's see, going to 50 and 7. Hear, O my people. Right, so here we go again. He said, here again, Shema, and I will speak. This is Psalms 50:7. And I will speak, O Yasharal. So he's talking to again. I will testify against you. I am Elohim, your Elohim. Not for your sacrifices do I rebuke you. Your burnt offerings are continually before me. I will not accept a bull from your house or a goat or your folds. For every beast of the forest is mine, the cattle on 1,000 hills. I know all the birds of the hills, and all that moves in the field is mine. So who is it? Who your owner? He said, who is your owner? He said, it's mine. So who is it? It's somebody else's? No. The cattle on 1,000 hills. I know all the birds of the hills, and all that moves in the field is mine. If I were hungry, I wouldn't tell you. It's all yours. For the world and its fullness are mine. So who's the owner of the ox? Because you know that the first letter of the alphabet, the ox. They have an ox head. It means a lead about 1,000 to strength. He said, it's all mine. If I were hungry, I wouldn't tell you, for the world and its fullness are mine. Do I eat the flesh of bulls and drink the blood of goats? Do I eat sin offerings? Offer to Elohim a sacrifice of Yadah, or thanksgiving, and perform your vows to the Most High, Yahudy. But going back to Yeshayahu 1:3. It says, the ox knows its owner, and the donkey its master's crib. He said, the donkey, its master's crib. So the animals know who their owners are. Just like a dog, when you get it from you say you adopted it, and it had a previous owner, but then you took it back. And that dog, he knows you picked him up, and he knows you're now his new owner, because you've now taking care of that person. But guess what it says? But Yasharal does not know. My people do not understand. Why? Because he's saying animals, oxen, and donkeys know more than you do. He said oxen and donkeys have more consciousness than you. Because I just read in Psalm Talim chapter 50, he said all the animals know that they are mine. They know that. But how come you don't know that, Yasharal? Right, this is the book of Genesis, Bereshit chapter 2 and verse 1. Bereshit, Genesis chapter 2, verse 1. Genesis chapter 2, verse 1. Bereshit chapter 2, verse 1. Thus the Shamayim and the earth were finished. Hear, O Shamayim, and hear, O earth. And all the hosts of them. And on the seventh day, Yahuwah finished his work that he had done, and rested the Shabbat day from all his work that he had done. He ceased. Skipping over to verse 6. And a mist was going up from the land and was watering the whole face of the ground. Then Yahuwah Elohim formed Adam from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. He breathed into his what? He breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. Neshama, he said Neshama, the Ruach. And the man became a living soul, a Kai Nefesh. He breathed into his nostrils. He formed man from the dust of the ground. So he formed Adam from the dust of the ground, which means he was formed him without the aid of a woman. Or maybe you start looking at the earth as that female nature. But for some reason, he worked that in the earth without a natural birth. How you would look at a man and a woman coming together. He used the earth, which is a feminine form that was at his feet, because the earth is without form and void, and then he made a man from the dust of the ground. Without intercourse even being imputed yet to him, to be fruitful and multiply yet. But yet he made a man from the dust of the ground. So how can somebody say that he can't make a man from a woman without the aid of a man? He just made her from the dust of the ground without the aid of a man. Right, so this is verse 8. And Yahuwah Elohim planted a garden in the Aydah, in the east, and there he put Adam that he had formed. And out of the ground Yahuwah Elohim made to spring up every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food. He already gave you a food when you was born. He already gave that to you. And guess what? The tree of life was in the midst of the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It was just trees. But once the trees get cut down, you lose all consciousness. You don't even know how to discern between good and evil. He said, I don't know the difference between a good and evil tree and the tree of life. You don't know. Why? Because they cut them all down. But this is Yeshayahu chapter 9, Isaiah chapter 9 and verse 6. Isaiah chapter 9 verse 6. Isaiah chapter 9 verse 6. For unto us a child is born, and unto us a son is given. And he said, Adam. And the government shall be upon his shoulders. I put Adam in the Eden, and I put the man there. And guess what? And his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty Elohim, the Everlasting Father, the Prince, or Nagi Nasi of Shalom. Of the increase of his government in Shalom, there will be no end on the throne of Daud and over his kingdom, to establish it and to uphold it with justice and with righteousness. See, when he made Adam, he wanted him to uphold that Malkuth that he put him in. He put him in Eden, the garden, to Shamar and Abad. And then he said he had to uphold it in justice and righteousness. Sadiq, Sadaqah. For this time and forevermore. Right, because that's all a part of it, right? This is the book of Yeshayahu, Isaiah. All this is a part of it. It's the book of Isaiah chapter 10 and verse 1. 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 It says, woe to those who decree iniquitous decrees, and the writers who keep writing oppression, to turn aside the needy from justice. Why? Because you got to hold the Malkuth in justice, in Mishpat, in justice, and to rob the poor of my people of their right. That's why he made Adam to be. And guess what? That widows may be their spoil, and that they may make the fatherless their prey. Why? Because now when you start to do that, now you lifted up your iron to Yahuwah himself. What will you do on the day of punishment? See, this is the whole point of this whole thing. What are you going to do after Yahuwah starts to punish you for not doing things properly? In the ruin that will come from afar, to whom will you flee for help? And where will you leave your wealth? He said, where are you going to leave it to? Nothing remains but the crouch among the prisoners, or the fall among the slain. For all this, his anger has not turned away. His hand, his yard is stretched out still. It's still there. Right? This is the book of Isaiah, or Yeshayahu. Same thing, 7 and 13. Isaiah 7 and 13. Isaiah 7 and 13. Yeshayahu 7 and 13. And it says, and he said, hear then, O house of Daud, is it too little for you to weary men, that you weary my Elohim also? Therefore, Yahuwah himself will give you a son. What do you mean a son? Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son. He said a virgin is going to conceive and bear a son. What do you mean? And he shall call his name Emmanuel. What do you mean she's going to bear a child? A virgin is going to bear a child, conceive and bear a child. And he shall call his name Emmanuel. And he shall eat curds and honey when he knows how to refuse the evil and choose the good. Who is that? Because he's going to know how to refuse the evil and choose the, he says, refuse the evil and choose the good. Right, this is the book of Matthew, chapter 2, and verse 1. 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 Actually, go to Matthew, chapter 1, and verse 18. Matthew, chapter 1, and verse 18. Matthew, chapter 1, verse 18. Now, the birth of Yahushua Mashiach took place in this way. When his mother, Marim, when betrothed to Yusuf, before they came together, she was found with child from the Kudash Ruach. He said, man, the child was made without the aid of a man. Just like Adam was. Yahuwah worked something in the ground and created a man right out of the ground without the aid of a man. Without the aid of a man. Without intercourse of a man and woman coming together. He made Adam from the dust of the ground. The very same thing he was telling the house of Daud. He said, how long y'all gonna have all this oppression? But he said, you gotta uphold it in justice and righteousness. So because y'all not doing that, behold, a virgin gonna be with child. And I'm gonna put Adam right back in the earth. And he gonna uphold it in righteousness and justice and proper judgment. Yahushua Mashiach took the place. Now the birth of Yahushua Mashiach took place when his mother, Marim, had been betrothed to Yusuf, right? I mean, betrothed. Before they came together, she was found with a child from the Kudash Ruach. And her husband, Yusuf, being a just man, unwilling to put her to shame, resolved to divorce her quietly. Why? Because she was with a child without the aid of a man. And the only thing you be thinking in Yasharal is that she's a whore. And she was not married. She was betrothed. They didn't come together and have intercourse. But she had a child on the inside of her. But Yahuwah made a child without the aid of her, without intercourse. He did that with Adam. And he did that with Yahushua Mashiach when he came on the scene. So he needed a feminine nature to work inside in order for it to take place. And it's all by the Kudash Ruach, because you can't see it. You don't even know how it happened. But it happened. But all that's important. Going back to Yeshayahu, you can slide Yeshayahu chapter 1 and verse, Yeshayahu chapter 1, 1 through 3. Hear, O Yeshamayim, and give ear, O earth, for Yahuwah has spoken. Children I have reared and brought up, but they have rebelled against me. He said, you already done rebelled. The ox knows its owner, and the donkey its master's crib, but Yasharal does not know, my people does not understand. Why? Because you look at an ox, you look at an olive, but that word for rebelled is pasha. He said, my people, but they have rebelled against me. That word is pasha. It means rebelled, transgress, revolt. It means to apostatize, quarrel, to trespass against me. They don't even know who their owner is. Adam knew who his owner was because he created him from the Adama and put him in the earth. And he was able to, he had to uphold it in righteousness and justice, and he had to shamar and keep it. And he was formed without aid of a man, without intercourse between a man and a woman. It was all done by the Ruach and the Neshama. All in one time, right? That word for donkey is komor. Is komor. He said the donkey know his master's crib. He know what to come back to. That word is komor. It means he asks, not she donkey. Because she donkey is a throne. That's the one with Balaam. That was a female donkey that he hit. This is a male donkey. This is a male donkey. Male ass. It says dun red, but he says donkey. A male donkey. Right? So this is the book of Bereshit, Genesis, chapter 49 and verse 1. Genesis chapter 49 and verse 1. Genesis chapter 49 and verse 1. Bereshit. Genesis chapter 49 verse 1. Then Jacob called his sons and said, gather yourselves together. Isn't that what Yahudy told us to do? Notice what he gathered himself. That I may tell you what shall happen to you in the days to come. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen in the days to come. Matter of fact, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen in the future. You know what Yahushua did in Matthew 24? When shall these things be? When shall it be the sign of thy coming and the end of the world? They all gathered to him. In Matthew chapter 5, what did he say? That he went onto a mountain, and they all came to him, and he taught them, saying, Barak are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Barak are the peacemakers. Going to verse 2, it says, assemble and listen, sons of Jacob. Listen to Yasharal, your father. See, that's the whole point of this whole thing. Listen to your father, Abba. And know who your owner is. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might, and the first fruit of my strength. He said, you the first fruit. Preeminent in dignity and preeminent in power. When you look at the first letter of the alphabet, what is that? It's the ox. He was the first son. He said, you were the first son. You were the first one. You are the first one. But guess what it says? Unstable as water. He said, but you unstable. You shall not have preeminence. He said, you're not going to have preeminence. Even though you are the ox, you were the ox, and you were the first alphabet. You were the one that we put at the first, before we got to the 12th son. And guess what? Because you went up to your father's bed, then you defiled it. And it says you defiled it, he went up to my couch. Because you defiled it. But what's the whole point of this? Going to verse 11. Going to verse 11. It says, binding his foals in the vine and his donkey coat, the choice vine, and to wash the garments in wine and vestures. Skipping over to verse 14. 49:14. Yitzhakar is a strong donkey. Why? It's a male donkey. Crouching between the sheepfold. It's a male donkey. The donkey knows his master's crib. He saw that a resting place was good and that the land was pleasant. So he bowed his shoulder to bear and became a servant to forced labor. Why? Because that's all you get when you start to understand it. He said an ox knows his owner and the donkey is master's crib. He said he knows his master's crib. Right? This is the book of how does a donkey know its master's crib? How do you even know when to go into your master's crib? Or he say, go into your master's pen. How do you even know that? How? Right, this is the book of 1 Chronicles, Dabari Hayamin. 1 Chronicles chapter 12 and verse 31. 1 Chronicles chapter 12 and verse 31. 1 Chronicles chapter 12 and verse 31. 1 Chronicles chapter 12, verse 31. Of the half tribe of Manasseh, 18,000, who were expressly named to come and make Daud king. Of Yitzhakar, men who had understanding of the times, to know what Yasharal ought to do. An ox knows his owner, and the Kamor, its master's crib, a he donkey. Why? Because they understand the times and what Yasharal is supposed to do. They understood that. This is the book of Jubilees. This is the book of Jubilees, Pseudepigrapha. The book of Jubilees, Pseudepigrapha, chapter 6, and verse 32. And you command the children of Yasharal so that you shall guard the years of its number, 364 days. And it will be a complete year, and no one shall corrupt its appointed time from which its days or from its feast, because all the appointed times will arrive in them according to their testimony. Because an ox knoweth its owner, and the donkey its master's crib. They already know this. And guess what? But if they, it says, will arrive at their testimony, and will not pass over a day, and they will not corrupt a feast. But if they are transgressed, and they do not observe them according to the commandment, then they will corrupt all their fixed times and years, and will be moved from within this order, and they will transgress their ordinances. Because they're going to rebel against me. He said they already rebelled. They already rebelled against me. And all the sons of Yasharal will forget. Forget what? And they will not find the way of the years. And they will forget the new months and the appointed times and the shabaths. And they will say that Ari all the ordinance of years. For I know, and henceforth I will make you know, but not from my own heart, because the book written before me and is ordained in the heavenly tablets of the division of days, lest they forget the feast and the covenant and walk in the feast of the Goyim, the Gentiles. Yeah, you're going to end up walking according to a Goyim, a Gentile. And you know the thing about it, once you forget the yard, you're going to walk in the way of the Gentiles. You ain't going to remember the 10th day anymore. And guess what? And their errors, and after their ignorance. And there will be those who will examine the moon diligently, because it will corrupt their appointed times, and it will advance from years 10 days. And guess what? Therefore, it says 10 days. Therefore the years will come to them as they corrupt, and make a day a testimony, a reproach, and profane day a festival. And they will mix up everything. He said they will mix up everything. He's like, man, that's exactly what they're doing today. Bereshit chapter 29, 32. This is Bereshit, Genesis chapter 29, verse 32. And when Yahuwah saw Leah was hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. And Leah conceived and bore a son. She called his name Reuben. She called him Reuben. For she said, because Yahuwah has looked upon my affliction, from now my husband will love me. He's like, he gonna love me. Right? Leah's name means weary. Her name means weary. Because the ox knoweth its owner. Because what is the ox used for? Plowing. Her name means weary. Because an ox is used, that's what Rehoboam was the first son of Yasharal, and guess what? The ox was used, he said the strong bull was used for plowing. But he said, you know what? Being that you defiled my bed, you're unstable. You won't have preeminence anymore. He said you won't. Right, this is 1 Chronicles chapter 5, 1 through 2. The sons of Rehoboam, the firstborn of Yasharal. For he was the firstborn, he was. But because he defiled his father's couch, his birthright was given to the sons of Yusuf, the sons of Yasharal. He was given to the sons of Yusuf. Why? He was given to the sons of Yusuf. Why? Who are the sons of Yusuf? Ephraim and Manasseh. Ephraim and Manasseh. So that he could not be enrolled as the oldest son. Though Yehudah became strong among his brothers, and the chief came from him. We just read that. The birthright belonged to Yusuf. He said the birthright belonged to Yusuf. Right, so this is the book of Bereshit, Genesis chapter 38. and verse 1. Bereshit, Genesis chapter 38 and verse 1. Actually, Genesis chapter 35 and verse 1. Genesis. This is Bereshit, Genesis chapter 35, or 29. Actually, no. Yeah, 25, Bereshit, Genesis, can you close up? Yeah, I'm sorry. Bereshit, Genesis chapter 35 and verse 38 and verse 1. 38 and verse 1. 38 and verse 1. Genesis chapter 38 and verse 1. It happened at that time that Yehudah went down from his brothers and turned aside to a certain Edomite whose name was Hirah. There Yehudah saw the daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shua. He took her and went into her, and she conceived and bore a son and called his name Er. She conceived again and bore a son, and she called his name Onan. Yet once again she bore a son, and she called his name Shelah. Yehudah was in Kesib when she bore him. Right, going to, this is the Aramaic Targums. Jonathan. The Aramaic Targums, Jonathan chapter 38 and verse 1. The Aramaic Targums, Jonathan chapter 38 and verse 1. It happened at that time Yehudah lost his possessions and parted from his brothers. He said he lost all his stuff. He lost all his possessions and parted from his brother, and turned aside to an Edomite man whose name was Hirah. So he lost all his stuff, and he turned aside to an Edomite whose name was Hirah. Then Yehudah saw the daughter of a merchant whose name was Shua, and he proselytized her and went in unto her. He proselytized her, which means he converted her over to Yasharal's practices, and he went unto her. And she conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Er, because he was destined to die childless. And she conceived again and bore a son, and she called his name Onan, because his father was indeed destined to grieve because of him. Yet again she bore a son, and she called his name Shelah, because her husband had forgotten her. And guess what? And he was in Pascha when she bore him. And guess what it says? Yehudah took a wife for Er, his firstborn, the daughter of Shem the Great, whose name was Tamar. But Er, the firstborn of Yehudah, was evil before Yehudah, because he did not have intercourse with his wife according to the manner of the earth. Right? He did a whole nother thing, because when you plant seed, you're supposed to plant it inside. But he did something different. And the anger of Yahuwah blazed forth against him, and Yahuwah killed him. He says, so why are we reading all of this? Because he said that Yehudah prevailed, right? Yehudah grew strong among his brothers, and chief came from him. But the birthright was given to Yusuf. Wow. Right, skipping down to verse 11. And then Yehudah said to his daughter-in-law, Tamar, remain a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah grows up. For he thought perhaps he too may die like his brothers. So Tamar went and dwelt in his father's house. Many days went by, and Shua's daughter, the wife of Yehudah, died. And when Yehudah was comforted, he went up to Timnah and to his sheep shearers, he and his friend Aydah the Edomite. And Tamar was told, saying, behold, your father-in-law is going to Timnah to shear his flock. So she took off the garments of her widowhood, covered herself in a veil, wrapped herself up, and sat at the crossroads on the way sat at the crossroads on the way to Timnah, where all eyes looked. For she saw Shelah had grown up, and she had not been given him to wife. Yehuda saw her, and in his eyes he compared her to a harlot, because she was sullen appearance. Right? It was a sullen appearance in the house of Yehuda, and Yehuda did not love her. He turned aside to her and wrote by the road and said, Come now, let me go in unto you. For he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. So you see, Yehuda did not have any self-control. And you see, Yehuda was going into a harlot. And you see, Yehuda committing fornication. And guess what? And she said, What will you give me that you may come unto me? And he said, I will give you a kid from the flock. She said, Will you give me a pledge until you send it? And he said, What pledge shall I give you? And she said, Your signet ring, your fringes, and your staff in your hand. So understand, when a woman plots against you, and you didn't give her something that she was supposed to have, and she ain't get it, you see what she did. So make sure, he said, so make sure you keep your vows. Because he said I was going to give you to Shelah when he grows up, and he didn't do it. So therefore, a woman plotted against him. And when you start to plot against somebody, you start to see things start to come out improperly. Verse 18, and he said, What pledge shall I give you? And she said, Your signet ring, your fringes, and your staff that is in your hand. Now she's going to take things from you. So he gave them to her and went unto her, and she conceived by him. Now this is an act that took place based upon a vow that was never performed, that she was supposed to get his son. But at the same time, his mind still was not right, because he still had the mind to sleep with a harlot. Then she arose and went away and took off her veil and put on the garments of her widowhood. So they finished, and then she took off her garments and went on ahead and went on about her life. And Yehuda sent the kid by his friend the Adumalite to receive the pledge from the hand of the woman. But he did not find her. He said he didn't find her. And what happened after that? And he asked the men of the place, saying, Where is the prostitute who was at the place on the way where eyes look? Because that's where they are. They're in a high traffic area. Because eyes look that way. Because when your ayin is lifted up, you have to be in a place where everybody see you. You have an exalted ayin. You have to. Because everybody there. And they say, and here's what it says. And Yehuda said, Let her keep her pledges, lest we become a laughing stock. Because he didn't want nobody to know about it. He's like, man, I went into a prostitute and I gave her my staff, my fringes, and my signet ring. I don't want nobody to know. I'm going to be a laughing stock. Man, you gave a prostitute all your stuff? Because remember, he already lost all his possessions. Behold, I sent this kid, but you did not find her. Now, after a period of 3 months, it became known that she was pregnant. And Yehuda was told as follows, Your daughter-in-law, Tamar, has played the harlot. See, this ain't like Yusuf's birth, when Miriam had birthed a child without the aid of a man. This ain't the same thing. She actually had intercourse with somebody. Miriam didn't. She says, and moreover, behold, she is pregnant because of her harlotry. And Yehuda said, Is she not the daughter of a Kahan, a priest? Is she not they call it a PK in the world? Is she not the daughter of a Kahan? What? Bring her out and let her be burned. See, that's how it was back then. Now you see why. Now you see why Yusuf was ready to put her away. He's like, I don't want nothing to happen to her. He said, let her be burned. So Tamar was brought out to be burned, and she looked for the 3 pledges, but did not find them. She lifted up her eyes to the heavens, Shamaim on high, and said, thus, I beseech you by the mercy before you, O Yahuwah, answer me in this hour of my distress, and enlighten my eyes that I may find 3 witnesses. Because you need 2 or 3 witnesses. How many witnesses it took to throw Isabel down? 2 to 3 men, eunuchs, looked out the window. And guess what? Where we at? And I will raise up for you from my loins 3 Chdsh ones who will sanctify your name by going down to the furnace of fire in the valley of Turah. That hour the Chdsh one Barak he beckoned to Michal, and he enlightened her eyes so that she found them. He gave her back her memories. He enlightened her eyes. And guess what happened when you get back your memories? She took them and threw them in the feet of the judges and said, the man to whom these pledges belong, by him I am pregnant. He's like, he gonna enlighten my eyes so I can defend myself. And guess what happened? To save myself from death. And guess what? Yet, even if I were burned, I will not make him known. He said, even if I were burned, I will not make him known. I said, I'm going to hide it all the way to the end. But Yahuwah of the world will put it in his heart to recognize them, and he will deliver me from this great judgment. And when Yahudah saw them, he recognized them. Then he said in his heart, it is better for me to be ashamed in this world, which is a passing world, than to be ashamed in the presence of my fathers, the righteous ones, in the world to come. It's better for me to be burned in this life, in extinguishable fire, than to be burned in the world to come in inextinguishable fire. For this is the measure for measure, according to what I said, my father Jacob, identify and I pray your son's cloak. Because of that I must here in the courthouse, identify and pray. Whose are these? The signet ring, the fringes, and the staff. Then Yahudah acknowledged them and said, Tamar is innocent. She is pregnant by me. Then a heavenly voice came down from Shamaim and said, the matter has come before me. So both of them were delivered from judgment. He said both of them were. Yahuwah gave them mercy. Because Tamar, even though she wasn't given the son, Shelah, ended up getting pregnant, but she had his three signs and 3 witnesses. And then Yahudah confessed his sins and what he did. And then a voice came from Shamaim and stopped their judgment from happening. It stopped them from dying. It stopped things from happening to them by everybody coming clean. So that's why I said, if everybody came clean today and everything they've done today, then a lot of things will not take place. A lot of things will not take place in your life if you come clean today. Because today is a day of salvation, not tomorrow. And Yahudah said, because I did not give her to my son Shelah, this has happened. See, this is what happens when you don't keep your vow and keep your word. When you don't keep your word, there are consequences down the line. It's called karma. When you don't keep your word, it's called karma. It's coming down the line, and you're going to pay for what you did, right? He said, this happened to me. So you can't be like, oh, this happened to me because of this. This happened to me. No, this happened because you didn't do something. And he did not know her again in sexual intercourse. He said he never knew her again after that one time they had intercourse. So you think all these things take place in the world today? He said, I ain't know her again. Ever. But Yahudah did grow strong though. It said Yahudah became strong among his brothers, and chief came from him. It did. But the birthright was given to Yusuf. So you look at Yahudah, and people say, yeah, you look at Yahudah though. Even though the fathers, if you measure them by their fathers, Yahudy itself is a son of transgression. But being that he confessed his sins, Yahuwah withheld judgment from him and hid from him. But he's the son of transgression, though. Just like Shamshun was. He had the mind of Shamshun, wanted to lay with a prostitute. But at the same time, Yehuda still boasts today as if they're the greatest thing. But in actuality, you start looking at who Yehuda is, they don't even deserve it. Did Yehuda deserve not to have judgment that day? This day? No. He deserved whatever judgment was going to come, but the judgment was taken away. And amazingly, by 3 witnesses. And how many people was on the totality with when Yahushua was on the cross? 3 people. Those same 3 men, the 2 thieves and Yahushua Mashiach, those 3 witnesses took away your judgment. But it said right here, and he did not know her again in sexual intercourse. And when the time came for her to give birth, behold, there were 2 twins in her womb. He said, there go 2 people again. And guess what? And when she was giving birth, an infant put forth his hand, his yard, and the midwife took a crimson thread and tied it on his hand, saying, this one came out first. This one came out first. He put a crimson guard. But when the infant drew back his hand, remember, there's always somebody trying to pass you. As soon as you put your hand out to come out, there's always somebody trying to pass you. Behold, his brother came forth, and she said, with what great power have you have prevailed? And it is, he said, and it is you who are to prevail, since you are destined to possess the kingship. He said, you destined to take the kingship. Why? And she called his name Perez, after his brother who had the crimson thread tied to his hand came out. And she called his name Zerah. He said he called his name Perez. We can get into that, but so this is the book of, going back to 2 Kings, this is 2 Kings chapter 9, 1 through 37. And when Azariah, the king of Yehuda, saw this, he fled in the direction of Beth Hagan, and Yahoo pursued him and said, shoot him also. And they shot him in the chariot at the ascent of Gur, which is in Abilam. And he fled to Megiddo and died there. His servants carried him in his chariot to Jerusalem and buried him in the tomb with his fathers in the city of Daud. And in the 11th year of Joram, the son of Ahab, Ahaziah began to reign over Yehuda. And when Yahoo came to Jezreel, Azabal heard of it. And she painted her eyes and adorned herself and looked out the window. The same way you saw Tamar look out. She put on her garments and she sat by the way and pretended to be a harlot on the side of the road that everybody can see him. And Yehuda saw her. Yehuda saw her now. And he said, what shall I give you to go into you? And he went into her. He gave her the signet ring, the fringes, and his staff. And he went into a harlot. And he didn't want to be a laughingstock either, because he did some things that he wasn't supposed to do. But it says, and he lifted up his face toward and he says, and Yahoo entered the gate. She said, is it Shalom, you Zimri, murderer of your master? And he lifted up his face to the window and said, who is on my side? Who? Why? Because seduction is very powerful. Seduction is very powerful. It's very powerful. And guess what? And he lifted up his face to the window and said, who is on my side? Who? 2 eunuchs looked out at him. And he said 2 to 3 eunuchs looked out at him. There's 3 witnesses, 2 to 3 witnesses. And he said, throw her down, or shabath. So they threw her down in shabath, and some of her blood spattered on the wall and the horses, and they trampled on her. He said, this is the book of Testament of Rehoboam, Testament of Reuben, Testament of Rehoboam. Testament of Rehoboam, chapter 1 and 1. Testament of Rehoboam, chapter 1 and 1. The copy of the Testament of Rehoboam, even the commands which he gave his sons before he died in the 125th year of his life. 2 years after the death of Yusuf, his brother, when Rehoboam fell ill, his sons were gathered together to visit him. They all gathered in one place. They all gathered around him. I think when Yahusha died, everybody gathered around him, and that was his last, words before he died. Everybody gathered around him. The same thing they did with Yaakov. These are the last words. And he said to them, my children, behold, I am dying, and go the way of my father. He said, I'm going to write some of the grave with my fathers, with my ancestors, how they say. And seeing there Yehuda and Gad and Asher, his brethren, he said to them, there were other people there too, raise me up that I may tell my brethren and to my children what things I have hidden in my heart. See? For behold, now at length I am passing away. You don't want to have nothing in your heart when you leave here. And guess what? And he arose and kissed them and said unto them, hear, my brethren, and do ye, my children, give ear to Rehoboam. Skipping over to verse. Just going to verse 6. And behold, I call witness against you this day, the Elohim of Shamayim, that ye walk not in the sins of youth and fornication, wherein was poured out and defiled the bed of my father Yaakov. He said, don't do it. See, these are all a part. He said, so why they took all these rulerships and things, and he said he gave a birthright to Yusuf. There's a reason why, because Yahudy did the same thing. And guess what it says? And I tell you that he smote me with sore plague in my loins for 7 months. He said, he smote me in my loins for 7 months. And had not my father prayed for me to Yahuwah would have destroyed me. What do you think happened to Yehuda when he had revealed his sins to everybody, and then the voice came in and stopped him from judgment? What do you think that was? What do you think that was when him and Tamar? What do you think that was? He said, it would have destroyed me. For I was 30 years old when I wrought the evil thing before Yahuwah, and for 7 months I was sick unto death. He said, for 7 months. So you think about that. He said, I'm sick unto death. See, you're going to get repaid back for what you do. And after this, I repented with set purpose of my soul, Nefesh, for 7 years before Yahuwah. He said, I had to build for 7 years. How many cars and moors we have? 7. What happens after every 7 years? The year of Jubilee. So you think I did that act in Yasharal Yehuda, and then I don't have to do nothing? I just keep on willy-nilly and keep going. So you think you're going to just keep going without having no repentance for over 7 years? You think about that. You got no repentance and you just keep fornicating. During that whole time, you just keep fornicating. No repentance whatsoever. He said he had to do it for 7 years before Yahuwah. And wine and strong drink, I drink not. You know what people doing? They drinking. They, you know, after they fornicate and do things and commit adultery, they drinking wine. They doing all these things for 7 years. Right? He said, for 7 years I ain't do it. After I fornicated, he said, I ain't drink no wine. Strong drink, I drink not. And flesh entered not in my mouth. He said, man, look at here. And I ate no pleasant food. I mourned over my sin. He was doing this thing on a weekly basis. For it was great, such as had not been in Yasharal. He said, nobody never slept. He said, this ain't never happened. And now hear me, my children, what things I saw concerning the 7 spirits of deceit when I repented. See, this is what happens when you repent. You become an expert in demons. You literally become an expert in Shadim. Because when you start fornicating, you create demons. The same thing with adultery. You create demons. That's why you think all these people are, you start to become an expert with Shadim and demons. People that went through the fire and the battle, they are expert in demons. They understand it. That's why they talk about it so much. And guess what? And here's what it says. 7 spirits, therefore, are appointed against man, and they are the leaders in the works of youth. And 7 other spirits are given to him at his creation. And through them should he be done every work of man, right? That's a whole nother subject. The first spirit, Ruach of life, was skipping over, but that's all a part of it. Going to chapter 2. Going to chapter 2, Testament of Rahuban, chapter 2. Testament of Rahuban, chapter 2. Chapter 2 and verse 18. Chapter 2 and verse 15. Testament of Rahuban 2:15. And for moreover concerning them, the Malach of Yahuwah told me and taught him when? During them 7 years of his repentance. And what did it teach him? That women are overcome by the Ruach of fornication more than men. He said the Ruach of fornication take over the weaker vessels. And guess what? And in their heart they plot against men. I told you, if they don't get what they want, they're going to plot against you. And by means of their adornment, they deceive first their minds, and by glance of the eye instill the poison. Because they got the Ruach of hatred if they don't get what they want. And then they have their iron lifted up. And what happens? Just like Isabel painted her face, and she all exalted, they're going to get what they want. And they're going to plot against you. They instill the poison, because that's the Ruach of hatred. Work together with Satan. And made it with lying and jealousy. And matter of fact, it's an evil, devilish poison. It's an unseen poison. That's why Yahudy got poisoned. He got poisoned. He just ain't know it though. It didn't get revealed until they revealed the 3 witnesses against him. And then through the accomplished act, they take them captive. See how you become an expert with demons and spirits. By experience. For a woman cannot force a man openly, but a harlot's bearing, she beguiles him. She beguiles him, just like Adam was beguiled in the gun. But who beguiled the woman though? Who tricked her? Nakash did. Nakash tricked her, and then she used that Nakash's understanding, and ended up swindling Adam out of his immortality. But guess what it says? And change themselves into the shape of men. Skipping over, yeah. Flee therefore fornication, my children, and command your wives and your daughters that they adorn not their heads and their faces to deceive the mind. Or you're going to be like Isabel Exalted. You're going to be like her. You're trying to deceive somebody's mind. Think about it. Somebody put a picture and just plaster their face in your face. And they're beautiful. What do you think that is? And it says, because you tell your daughters don't do that. And your wives. Why? Because if they do, their heads and their faces deceive the mind. Because every woman who uses such thing, these wiles have been reserved for eternal punishment. Throw her down. Why do you think he said throw her down? Shema. Shemit, right? He said throw her down. Throw her down. For thus they allured the watchers who were before the flood, as those continually beheld them, they lusted after them and conceived the act in their mind. It's already there. That fantasy is in your mind. Once it comes there, that's all it is. For they captured themselves they changed themselves in the shape of men and appeared to them when they were with their husbands. Isn't Isabel married right here? That's what happens. And then she became what? Because being that Yahudy didn't hearken to her and try to be deceived by her, guess what happened to her? She became the fallen. Remember where you have fallen and repent. She became the fallen. That's what would have happened to Kawua had Adam not yielded to her. She would have been the fallen. Matter of fact, same thing happened to Isabel. See, it all depends. If one or the other, a man can do these things to a woman, and a woman can do it to a man. Whoever yields over is the person who will become the fallen. If you resist, that other person will become the fallen. But if you don't, and both of you join in, then both of you become the fallen. But either way it goes, somebody gonna become the fallen. And guess what? And the woman, lusting in their minds after their forms, gave birth to giants. For the watchers appeared to them, reaching even unto the Shemaims. Right, going to verse 34. And then he went in and ate and drank, and he said, see now the cursed woman, and bury her, for she is the king's daughter. Right? Show some respect, even though she is a king's daughter, though. But at the same time, but when they went to bury her, they found no more of her than the skull and the feet and the palms of her hand. And when they came back and told him, he said, this is the word of Yahuwah spoken by Yahudy Tishbite in the territory of Jezreel. The dog shall eat the flesh of Isabel, and the corpse shall be as dung on the face of the field, in the field of the territory of Jezreel. Right? So this is the Joseph and Asenath. Joseph and Asenath, pseudographer. This is the book of Joseph and Asenath. This is the book of Joseph, Yahusef, and Asenath. Joseph and Asenath, chapter 11. This is pseudographer. Joseph and Asenath, pseudographer, volume 2. Joseph and Asenath, chapter 11, and verse 1. And on the 8th day, behold, it was dawn, and the birds were already singing, and the dogs barking. Passing through, and Asenath lifted up her head just a little from the floor and the ashes on which she was lying, because she was exceedingly tired and could not control her limbs, because of the want of food for the 7 days. And she arose on her knees, and she put her hand on the floor and lifted herself up a little from the floor, and she was still bowing her head, and the hairs of her head were stretched out in strands from the load of the ashes. And Asenath clasped her hand finger against finger, and she shook her head to and fro, and struck her breast continually with her hands. And what did she do? And laid her head in her lap, and her face was flooded with her tears. And she sighed with great sighing, and pulled her hair from her head, and sprinkled ashes on her head. And Asenath was tired and became discouraged, and her strength had gone. And she turned upward to the wall, and sat below the window, looking east. What? She did what? And guess what? And she laid her head, and she laid her head into her lap, clasping her fingers around her right knee, and her mouth was closed. And she had not opened it for 7 days. And in the 7 nights of her humiliation, and she said in her heart without opening her mouth, what shall I do? Miserable am I am. Right, so how she get that way? Right, so going to Joseph and Asenath. Joseph and Asenath. So this is Joseph and Asenath chapter 8 and verse 1. Joseph and Asenath chapter 8 and verse 1. It says, and Asenath's mother went into the upper floor and brought her and stood her before Yusuf. She was in the upper, she was up in the air, in the upper floor. And Peninnah said to his daughter Asenath, greet your brother, because he too is a virgin, like you, today, and hates every strange woman. He said, I hate every strange woman, as you too, every strange man. And Asenath said to Yusuf, be of good cheer. My master Barak, by the Most High, Yahudy. And Yusuf said to Asenath, may Yahuwah Elohim who gives life to all things, Barak you. And Petres said to his daughter Asenath, go up and kiss your brother. And Asenath went up to kiss Yusuf, and Yusuf stretched out his right hand, his yard, and put it on her chest between her two breasts, and her breasts were already standing upright like handsome apples. And Yusuf said, it is not fitting for a man who worships Elohim to do what? Who baraks his mouth with the living Elohim to eat, and eats Barak bread of life, and drink blessed cup of immortality, and anoint himself with blessed ointment of incorruptibility, to kiss a strange woman who blesses with her mouth dead dumb idols, and eat from their table bread of strangulation, and drink their libations a cup of insidiousness, and anoint herself with ointment of destruction. This is going to happen to you. That's what's going to happen to you if you do these things. But a man who worships Elohim will kiss his mother and his sister, who is born of his mother, and his sister, who is born of his clan and family, and wife who shares his bed, all of whom blesses with their mouths the living Elohim. Likewise, for a woman who worships God Elohim, it is not fitting to kiss a strange man, because this is an abomination before Yahuwah Elohim. So you look at all that. So you do all these things, and then you end up doing things opposite of what Yahuwah says. And people say, how does this even entangle yourself in things of that sort, right? So this is the book of skipping over to verse chapter 9. Actually going to keep going. And when Asenath heard these words of Yusuf, she was cut to the heart. Man, it's just like Yahoo going up there, pulling his bow strap with full strength and shooting that arrow right through the chest of the man who was defending Isabel. It's just like Yahoo pulling that arrow back full strength and shooting that arrow right through. Is it peace? No. There is no shalom. There's no peace. And it said, it cut to her heart strongly, and was distressed exceedingly, and sighed, and she kept gazing at Yusuf with her eyes, her ayin, open, and her ayin was filled with tears. See, now she still got her ayin gazed on you though. Still trying to find some sympathy for getting her heart struck through an arrow full strength. And Yusuf saw her and had mercy on her exceedingly. Then Yahuwah had mercy on Yehuda and Tamar. He gave him mercy exceedingly. And guess what? And was himself cut to his heart. And he started getting cut. He's like, man, I just killed this one at full speed. Because that's what happens to a man sometimes. We end up doing things, we like, man, I done hit this person full speed. And I shouldn't even did it that hard. But that's what happens. Because Yusuf was meek and merciful. And fearing Elohim. He said, man, I thought, I did that thing too hard. I shouldn't have did that hard. I shouldn't have did it that hard. I shouldn't have hit it with the arrow full strength. Pow. He's like, no, I shouldn't have did that. And guess what? And he lifted up his right hand, his yod, and put it on the head, upon her head, and said, Yahuwah, my Elohim, of Yasharal, the Most High, the powerful one of your code, who gave life to all things, who called them from darkness to light. He called you out of darkness into this marvelous light. And from error to truth, and from death to life. You, Yahuwah, Barak this virgin, and renew her by your ruach. You know, he said, be transformed, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And renew her ruach, and form her anew by your hidden hand. It's a hidden hand, you don't see it. It's a hidden yod. And make her alive again by your life. And let her eat your bread of life. I'm the bread which came down from Shemayim. Why do you think Yahushua said that? And when you eat it, what happens? And drink your cup of Barak. And guess what? And number her among your people. And that you have chosen before all things came into being, and let her enter your rest. But what had to happen first in order for that to happen? She had to get cut to her heart. She had to get cut to her heart. And she had to shed some tears in order for that to happen. And guess what? And you have chosen before all things came to being, and let her enter your rest. What do you think today? He said, what do you think today? And guess what? Which you have prepared for your chosen ones, and live in your eternal life forever and ever. So what did that make her do? So you see all that, and you see all that going to this Joseph Asenath chapter 10 and verse 9. Joseph and Asenath chapter 10 and verse 9. So when he did all that, what did she do? And Asenath rose and opened the door quietly and went into her second chamber, where the chest containing her ornaments were. And opened her coffer and took out a black and timber tunic. And this was the tunic of mourning when her younger brother died. And in this Asenath dressed and mourned for her brother. And she took her black tunic and what she do? And carried it into her chamber and closed the door again firmly and slipped in the bolts. And guess what? And Asenath hurried and put off her linen and gold woven royal robe and dressed in a black tunic in the morning and loosened her golden girdle and girded a rope around her feet and put everything on the floor. And she took her chosen robe and the golden girdle, and what did she do? And the headgear and the diadem, and threw everything through the window looking north to the poor. And Asenath hurled and took all her gods that were in her chamber, the ones of gold and silver, who were without number, and ground them to pieces, and threw all the idols of the Egyptians through the window, looking north from the upper floor to the beggars and the needy persons. She threw all that stuff. Just like Isabel was thrown out the window, she grounded the powder and threw it all out the window, just like Isabel thrown out the window. So you see her throwing out her demons out of her heart and her mind out the window. She threw all her demons out of her life. She threw all the things that connected to the demons out of her life. She grounded the powder and threw it out the window. Why do you think Yahusha said, sell all you had and give to the poor, you have treasures in Shemayim? She threw all that out the window. As a matter of fact, she threw it to the poor. She gave it to the poor too. And Asenath took her royal dinner and the fatlings, and what else she did? And the fish and the flesh and the heifer and all the sacrifices of her gods and the vessels of their wine and libations, and threw everything through the window looking north, and gave everything to the strange dogs. Isn't that what they just did here? Isabel, she said the dog's going to lick up the bones of Isabel, going to lick up the flesh of Isabel. And that's what happened to her. Because Asenath's iron was lifted up. She was a virgin, but her iron was lifted up. She had exalted iron. And guess what? By no means must my dogs eat from the dinner, but from my dinner, and from the sacrifice of idols, but let the strange dogs eat those. Now you see why he said, yea, master, but the dogs eat the crumbs from the master's table. Because she the master, she up there, she the rich person. And she threw all that stuff down and ground it to powder to the dogs. And let the strange dogs eat it. But don't let my dogs eat it, but let the strange dogs eat it. The dogs eat the crumbs from the master's table. And her daughter was healed instantly because she was possessed by a demon. And guess what? And she scattered the ashes on the floor. Actually, yeah. But let the strange dogs eat it. And after Asenath looked, the skin full of ashes, and poured it on the floor. Right? So he did all that. But it's more of that. But here we go. Going back to verse 2 Malachi chapter 9, verse 34. Then he went in and ate and drank, and he said, see now this cursed woman, and bury her, for she is a king's daughter. But when they came to bury her, they found no more of her than the skull and the feet and the palms of her hand. And when they came back and told him, he said, this is the word of Yahuwah that he spoke to by the servant Aydah the Tishbite in the territory of Jezreel. The dogs shall eat the flesh of Isabel, the strange dogs. The corpse of Isabel shall be dung on the face of the field in the territory of Jezreel, where Yahuwah sows, because that's where he sold her at. So that no one can say this is Isabel, right? So this is the book of, so that word for throw her down is shabath. Shabath, it means to release. To release. To throw down. To fling down. To let alone. To desist. To stop. To desist. That's what Asenath did. She stopped worshiping her idols. Because he used to say, I ain't kissing no woman that worship idols. So she had to go from being like Isabel and Pharaoh's daughter, who worshiped the Elohim, gods of Eden, Mizraim, and she had to grind the powder and throw it down. She had to do that herself. She had to make a choice. Nobody gonna make you do something, but he made sure that he crushed her heart. Right, so that word for painted is sum. It means to place, to what? To make, to what? She painted her eyes. She extended them. She fixed them. She appointed them. She made a sign. It says, lay violent hands on. What do you think that person's doing? Amazingly, you start to see this. It says extend, right? To put. Right, so that word, he said she anointed her iron. Why? Because all these are a part of your eyes. But notice her iron, Asenath's eyes were still fixed on Yusuf. Her spiritual faculties, her mental qualities were still fixed on Yusuf, even though he cut her to the heart. And her iron started to cry. Conceit. Right? Her spiritual faculties. He cut her to the heart. And she shed tears. Why? Because you know what happens when you get into the sun, you speed up your vibrations and you start to sweat. That's what happens. You start to sweat. It speed up your vibrations and all the things start coming out of your body. Right, this is the Yeshayahu chapter 40, 13 through 17. Who has measured the Ruach of Yahuwah? Who measured it? Can you? Or what man shows him his counsel? Whom did he consult, and who made him understand? Who taught him the path of justice and taught him knowledge? Who did it? Can you measure it? And showed him the way of understanding. Who did all that? Behold, the nations are like a drop from a bucket. He's like, man, the nations are like from a drop from a bucket. And guess what? And are counted as the dust on the scales. Isn't that what Asenath did? She ground all that stuff to powder and threw it out the window. It's just like dust. Behold, he takes up the coastlands like fine dust. Lebanon would not suffice for fuel, nor are its beasts enough for burnt offerings. All nations are nothing before him. He said, all nations are nothing before him. Can you measure the Ruach? He had counted him as less than nothing and emptiness. Why? What did Yusuf had to do to the woman? He had to impart for her an understanding of why he's not going to do something. And why? Because she was without something. But he says, all nations are nothing before him. But who can measure the Ruach? They are counted by him as less than nothing in emptiness. So when you don't have Yahuwah, Mashiach, Yahuwah on the inside, and you don't have him in your life, he said you are counted as nothing too. If you don't have the Mashiach, Yahushua on the inside, you are counted as nothing to him. Because you are nothing without him. Right, so that word for dust is shakak. He said they are all counted as dust. That was shakak. It means dust, clouds, thick clouds, extension, the firmament, clouds, small, heaven, sky. He said they are what? Like a vapor, a powder. He said that's all they are to me. They're like powder. He said, I grind those things to powder. Why? He said, like the firmament. You'd be like, why he make them like the firmament? Because they worship the firmament. They're like the firmament. They're like the lower level of the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh Shamayim. They're below the first Shamayim. They are lower than the first Shamayim. They're like dust. They're like the firmament. Right, this is the book of Luke. He said, why he say all that? Because everything that happens for a reason. Right, so this is the book of Luke. All right, so this is the book of Luke chapter 6. Luke chapter 6 and verse 44. Luke chapter 6, verse 44. For each tree is known by its own fruit. For figs are not gathered from the thorn bushes, nor are grapes picked from the bramble bush. A good person out of the good treasures of his heart produces good, and the evil person out of the evil treasures produces evil. For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So what is the fruit? What's in your heart? Why do you call me master, master, and do not do what I tell you? Why do you think Asenath did what she did? Why she did that? She did what she was doing, what she had to do. Everyone who comes to me and hears my words and does them, I will show him he or she is like. So why do you think Asenath did what she did? She heard what Yusuf said. She heard it to borrow what he said. And then she ended up doing something. She said, man, you know what you like, Asenath? He or she is like a man building a house who dug deep and laid the foundation on a rock. That's what she did. Why do you think she did that? She laid it on the rock. What would you rather be? On the rock or the rock on top of you? Because what's going to happen if the rock on top of you? Because that's the whole point. Because she was actually in a tower. But then she understood she had to get rid of some stuff so the rock don't be on top of her. Right? Because if it was on top of her, it would be a something that was going to happen to her. Because that's the whole point, right? It says in Matthew chapter 21 and verse, Matthew chapter 21 and verse 40. Matthew chapter 21 and verse 40. When therefore the owner of the vineyard comes, what will he do to those tenants? Actually, going to verse 37. Finally, he sent his son to them, saying, they will respect my son. When Yahuwah's son, he's the son of Elohim, right? But when the tenants saw the son, they said to themselves, this is the heir. Didn't he give the birthright to Yusuf? To Yusuf's lineage? He said, this is the heir. Come, let us kill him and have his inheritance. He said, man, let me get his inheritance. And they took him and threw him out of the vineyard and killed him. That's what they do today. And when therefore the owner of the vineyard comes, he says, what will he do to those tenants? They said to him, he will put those wretches to a miserable death and let out the vineyard to other tenants who will give him the fruits in their season. Yahushua said to them, have you never read the scripture? The stone which the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. He said, who do I liken you to? You are like a person who built your house on a rock. This is Yahuwah's doing, and marvelous in your eyes. Therefore I tell you, the kingdom of Elohim will be taken away from you and given to a people producing its fruits. And the one who falls on this stone will be broken to pieces. Matter of fact, dust. And guess what? And when it falls on anyone, it will crush him. I mean, it's going to crush you to powder. It's going to crush you. And when the chief priests and the Pharisees heard his parable, they perceived that he was speaking about them. Why? Because everything that you saw what Asenath did. You saw what she did. Right, so that word for fine dust, going back to the slide at verse 15, it says, behold, the nations are like a drop from a bucket. They are counted as dust in the scales. Behold, he takes the coastlands like fine dust. The word for fine dust is dak. He says thin, fine, gaunt. He says a very little thing, a small and thin, a dwarf, lean. He said he takes up the coastlands like fine dust. He said it's real small and it's real thin. It's real thin. Right, this is 2nd Ezra This is second Esdras. This is second Esdras chapter 6. Second Esdras chapter 6 and verse 52. Second Esdras chapter 6 and verse 52. Second Esdras chapter 6 and verse 52. But unto the Leviathan, thou gavest the seventh part, namely the moist, and hast kept him to be devoured, of whom thou wilt, and when. Upon the sixth day thou gavest commandment unto the earth, that before thee it should bring forth beasts, and cattle, and creeping things. We just read that. But guess what he did? And after these, Adam also. He said, Yahudy made all these things. He said, ox knows its owner, and the Kamor is master's crib. A shore knows its owner, and a Kamor is master's crib. And he made Adam also, whom thou madest master of all thy creatures. He made him what? He made him master of them. So how you master of Yahuwah's creatures, you don't even know what his creatures look like. You don't even know what they do. You don't even know their attributes. You don't know how they look. You don't know how vast it is, all the species. You don't even understand it. You don't even understand on the level that you need to understand it. So how are you a master of all the species and you don't even know how they operate, how they think? I forgot. They don't have no feeling. They don't have no emotion. They don't have nothing. I guess you haven't really studied the creatures yet. If you did, you will understand they have attitude just like you do. They get upset just like you. They have love just like you. They just don't speak in certain languages that you don't understand. But it says, of him can't come we all. He said, we all came out from whom? Adam. And the people also whom thou hast chosen. Everybody came from Adam, even the people he chosen. So the chosen are different from the people that everybody who came out. Because everybody came out from Adam. But he said the chosen are different. All this I have spoken before thee, O Yahuwah, because thou madest the world for our sakes. He said, you made the world for us, for our sakes. Forget what he said. As for the other people, which also came out of Adam. So, Asenath, didn't she come out from Adam? She the other people, but what was the difference? She wasn't chosen because she didn't worship Yahuwah Elohim. She didn't serve him. She worshiped other idols and gods. So therefore, that made her something. It made her like nothing. She didn't have no value. She didn't have no value until she got rid of her gods and her idols. Then once she got rid of her gods and her idols, what happened? And as for the other people whom thou came out from Adam, thou hast said that they are nothing. They're like dust. They're like small dust particles. Only be made to grind to powder. They're like the firmament. They worship the Shema, they worship the Kima and the Ketzil, the Oranos. They worship the Her star system. They worship Aydah, the star Aydah. They worship these gods. They worship Betelgeuse star. They follow after it in the peg star. So this is 6 months. He said they worship the peg. They say, worship Yahuwah who made the peg, the tent peg. And guess what it says? And as for the other people which also came out of Adam, thou hast said that they are nothing, but be like spittle. And they be like what? Like spittle. And has likened the abundance of them unto a drop that falleth from a vessel. You know what happens when you eat food? When you drink food? Sometimes that water come off the side of your mouth, and sometimes the crumbs fall from your mouth. But you got to understand, sometimes the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's Adam's table. Because he made the world for him. And he made a master over all the creatures. And sometimes Adam be eating sometimes. And you know, Adam got to eat. And then when Adam eats, you know, all the creatures that he mastered over, sometimes they fall from his table. And they eat that stuff. Because he mastered over all the creatures. He feeds them. He gives them all the food that Yahuwah told him in Bereshit chapter 1. He do all the things he's supposed to do, but then sometimes them crumbs fall from his table. It's like spittle. He said, you like an animal to him when you ain't been chosen. But just, even though the animals eat the crumbs from the master's table. And thou hast likened the abundance of them unto a drop that falleth from a vessel. A little drop. And now, Yahuwah, behold, these heathen, which has ever been reputed as nothing, have begun to be masters over us and to devour us. Why? Because they're animals. They're like animals. Because he compared them to animals. Because being that they don't worship Yahuwah, he compares them to animals. And now animals are ruling over us. But we, thy people, whom thou hast called thy firstborn, oh. You mean Rehoboam the firstborn? He said, yeah, Rehoboam defiled his father's bed. But he said the birthright was given to Uzzah's sons, the sons of Uzzah. Thy only begotten, thy fervent lover, are given into their hands. What do you mean only begotten? You're the firstborn. All that immersion Yahushua have put him on. Yet the dogs eat the crumbs from the master's table. And guess what? If the world now be made for our sakes, why do we not possess the inheritance with the world? How long shall this endure? He said it was made for us. We were supposed to be like Adam, created in the image. This is the 6th month too. And Yahuwah Elohim made Adam in his image and likeness. Damu Salim. Let him have dominion over the God of Ramiz, the Oath, and the Behemoth. And over all the earth. This is 6 months. But for some reason, the animals ruling over us. But he says, how long shall this endure? Right. Going back to the slide, he says, verse 17, all nations are nothing before him. Are accounted by him as less than nothing in emptiness. They are what? Less than nothing in emptiness. Right, so that word for, he said, man, he says all nations are nothing. I don't even know, what did I? Cessation. That's not my word. I gotta find my word. That's what it's PowerPoint does what it wants. Yeah, so that word for nothing is, in that verse, is afes. Afes. He said, they are counted to him as less than afes, nothing. It means cessation, leg, ankle, finality, an end. They are counted as nothing and emptiness. Cessation means, in that verse, cessation means stopping or ending or of an activity, action, or condition. It is to be a permanent finish or just a temporary pause. He said, all nations are as nothing before him. They are counted by him as less than nothing. They are what? And it says less than nothing in emptiness. That means it says the ankle. He said they're like at the ankle. They are like at the ankle, just like animals and dogs are at your ankles. It also means less than nothing. They're like a little drop of dust. And it also means, nevertheless, it also means thing of naught, it means also saving. But he said they are like less than nothing and emptiness. That word for emptiness is tohu. They are like formless in confusion, in emptiness, wasteland, wilderness, in chaos, a place of chaos. Notice how the animals are in chaos right now. They all fighting each other. The animals are in chaos, they fighting each other, there ain't no peace, and they rule over you. It means waste, a desolation. He said, I consider the nations like this, desert, in vain, confusion, empty place. He said, that's what the nations is like. What do you think Astronaut was like? She ain't know nothing about it. She was like, I ain't touching you. And it cut her to her heart. And she threw all her idols and ground them to powder and threw it out the window and gave to the poor and the needy. And she was high and exalted. She was a virgin too, Bethula. But she didn't have no works. And she didn't know Yahuwah Elohim. And she repented. Right? This is Bereshit chapter 1 through 3. In the beginning, Yahuwah Elohim created the Shemaims in the earth. And the earth was without form and void. He said, I consider all nations like that. And darkness over the face of the deep. And the Ruach of Elohim was hovering over the face of the water. Can you measure the Ruach? Because some people try to measure the Ruach and say, the Ruach can't go here, the Ruach can't go there, the Ruach can't go on that person. The Ruach can't go here, the Ruach can't go there. They try to measure it out and say, the Ruach can't go here. Matter of fact, the nations can't have the Ruach. You can't have the Ruach. You don't have it. They try to measure it out like it can't even go to you or something. Like it's only your personal Ruach. That's what happens. But he said the whole earth was without form and void, and darkness over the face of the deep. And the Ruach of Elohim was hovering over the face of the waters. And Elohim said, let there be light, and there was light. What happened? Going to verse 2, and it says, and the earth was without form and void. Qahalath. He said, without form and void. That tohu right here, tohu and bohu. They were without form and void. It was worthless place. It was a wasteland. It was chaos. Hayatah tohu bohu ukashak al panim. Ruach Elohim Marakaft al Panim Hamim. They were moving upon the face of the waters, on the top of the waters. He said the nations are just like Tohu and Bohu, without form and void, air and confusion. He said, all nations are nothing to me without my teachings, because commandment is left and the teaching is light. They are nothing to me without my teachings. They are nothing without me. They are in chaos without me inside. They are a wasteland without me. This is Jeremiah chapter 4, 28 to 31. For this the earth mourns, and the Shemaims above be dark. For I have spoken, I have purposed, and I have not relented, nor will I turn back. And the noise of a horseman and the archer, every city takes to flight. They enter thickets, they climb among rocks. All the cities are forsaken, and no man dwells in them. And you, O desolate one, what do you mean that you dress in scarlet, and that you adorn yourself with ornaments of gold, that you enlarge your eyes with paint? In vain you beautify yourself, your lovers despise you, they seek your life. Why do you think Yusuf despised that woman? She loved him too. For I heard the cry of a woman in labor. He cried. She cried too. He cut her to the heart. He cut her to the heart. Anguish as one giving birth to her first child. Man, he cut her to the heart. The cry of the daughter of Saul, gasping for breath. He said, you used to pray, he said, let her be enrolled in your people. After she got cut to the heart. Stretching out her hands, woe is me, I am fainting because of the murder. We just read that in Joseph and Asma, when she was fasting for 7 days, she would faint. She was losing all her strength. Yusuf cut her to the heart. Man, he shot her right through her heart. Man, he put her in recovery. You ever got hit with something, you got hit, be in recovery? She was in recovery for 7 days, but she was in there in recovery room. That's how hard he hit her with the bar. She was in a recovery room. That's what happens when you get to the recovery room. You say, man, recovery room. He said, yeah, when you get hit with the bar that hard and you get cut to the heart, you're going to be in a recovery room. You don't get cut. Anybody strike you with a sword, you're going to get cut to the heart. You're going to be in a recovery room. You can be like, man. Some people be in a coma. Right, so that just enlarge, that word for enlarge, Qahalath, it means to rend, to tear. Why do you think you tear your garments? You tear your clothes. But he says that you adorn yourself with ornaments of gold, that you enlarge your iron. That word for enlarge is, he says, to tear your eyes with paint. You rend your eyes with paint. You fix it up. You paint the eyes, enlarging them. Like you try to draw focus on them. Because the iron can make somebody fall. Adorning the face can make someone fall. Akshem, Jaza, Azazel, Asba'al, and Penuel. They did. Right, so that word for eyes is iron. It means spiritual faculty. Same thing. It makes your eyes get large. You start to change and your spiritual, your ruach starts to change. But he said your iron. Right, physical eye, right? And he said you adorn your eye with pook. It means what? Eye, cosmetic, black paint, dye. He said you adorn your iron with dye. Right? And it says right here in verse, it says that birth for beautify. In vain you beautify yourself. You yafa. You make yourself bright, to be beautiful. He said you do it. You're doing it to. You're doing it for the wrong reasons, right? So this is the book of, going back to Joseph and Asenath. Joseph and Asenath. Joseph and Asenath, chapter 11 and verse 4. Joseph and Asenath, chapter 11, verse 4. All people have come to hate me, and on top of those, my father and my mother because I have come to hate their gods and have destroyed them. See, have you done that? Yahudy said it's written in your Torah, they hate me without a cause. And guess what happens? All people have come to hate me. He said, Yahudy said, you're going to be hated by all nations for my name's sake. What do you mean hated by all nations for my name's sake? Because they're like nothing to Yahudy. They're like spittle. They're like powdered. They're like dust. If they don't repent. And on top of that, on top of those, my mother and my father, because I too have come to hate their gods and have destroyed them and caused them to be trampled underfoot by men. And therefore my father and my mother and my whole family have come to hate me and said, Asenath is not our daughter because she destroyed our gods. You're going to be hated by all nations for my name's sake. And all people hate me, because I do too have come to hate every man and all who ask for my hand in marriage. See, you become that arrogant. You become that arrogant in your heart and your mind. Now you become arrogant. Now you say, man, you got to confess your arrogance. Because I too have come to hate every man and all who ask for my hand in marriage. Why? Because they will all worship idols. See, once you become transformed, and you like hate every man that comes at you because now you don't transform yourself and you hate all unclean idols. But if you start to not, then you start to incline your mind to them because you still haven't transformed yourself. And now in this humiliation of mine, all have come to hate me and gloat over this affliction of mine. And I, Yahuwah, Elohim, of the powerful Yusuf, the Most High, hates all those who worship idols. So therefore, if Yahuwah hated, what do you think you're supposed to do? That's why he says all nations are as nothing, because they worship idols. Because he is a jealous and terrible Elohim toward all those who worship strange gods. Therefore, he has come to hate me too. I told you, Yahuwah hates you. You'd be like, man, why a man hate me? Because you worship idols? Why do you think Yusuf ain't kiss her? He's like, because you worship idols. Because Yahuwah was in his image and likeness. I don't know. But you know some people do. Because I worship dead dumb idols and barak them. And I ate from their sacrifices, and my mouth is defiled by their table. I know that some people got it in their mouth. He said that's what comes out of their mouth. That's why a lot of poison come out of their mouth, because they still got idols stuck in their throat. It's undigested food. They still got it stuck between their teeth. It's in their gogoroth, in their throat. They got the deep things of Satan in their throat. They're like deep throats. So that's what deep things of Satan. That's what Isabel is. You can learn the deep things of Satan. That's what idol worship is the deep things of Satan. That's why he said, bind them around your neck, your gogoroth, your throat. Write them on the tablets of your heart. And it says, I worship dead dumb idols and barak them and ate their sacrifices, and my mouth is defiled at their table, and I do not have the boldness to call on Yahuwah of Shamaim, the Most High, the Mighty One, the Mighty One of the powerful Yusuf, because my mouth is defiled from the sacrifice of the idols. But I have heard many saying, the Elohim of the Abri is a true Elohim, a living Elohim, and a merciful Elohim, and compassionate, long-suffering, and pitiful, and gentle. He's gentle and does not count the sin of a humble person. Anu. And exposes the lawless deeds of the afflicted person at the time of his affliction. Therefore, I will take courage to turn to him and take refuge in him and confess all my sins to him and to pour out my supplication before him. Who knows? Maybe he will see my humiliation. You want to humiliate somebody? Yahuwah says, I'm going to humiliate you. Maybe. And have mercy on me. Perhaps he will see this desolation of mine and have compassion on me. See, it's better you make yourself a desolation than he do. And see my orphanage and protect me, because he is the father of the orphans and the protector of the persecuted, and of the afflicted a helper, and I will take courage and cry to him. He said, man, all that takes place, right? Mostly Proverbs 20:9. It says, who can say, I have made my heart pure and I am clean from sin? Who can say that? He said, who can say that I made my heart pure and I am clean from my sins? You see, right? Me Amar, Zakariz, Alei B, Tahuriz, Makatai, Katai. Who can say, I have made my heart pure and am clean from sin? Who can say that? So that word for clean is zakah. It means to be clean, to be innocent. To be innocent. Who can say that? To be pure, to be clear, to be clean. He said, who can say that? Right, going to Joseph of Asenath, going to verse 16 of that same book. This is Joseph of Asenath, chapter 11, verse 16. What a wretched woman I am, and an orphan and a desolate. My mouth is defiled from the sacrifices of the idols. So she confessing her sins. Going to verse 15. And Asenath rose from the wall where she was sitting, and turned to the window, looking east, and straightened up on her knees, and spread her hands out towards Shamayim. That's what Isabel didn't do that. She didn't do that. Who is on my side? And guess what she did? And she was afraid to open her mouth and to name the name of Elohim. And she turned again away to the wall and struck her head and her breast and her hand often, and said in her heart, without opening her mouth, what a wretched woman I am, and an orphan and desolate. My mouth is defiled by sacrifices of idols, and from the blessing the gods of the Egyptians, Mizraim. And now, in these tears of mine, and the ashes strewn around in the filth of my humiliation, how shall I open my mouth to the Most High? Right? Going to chapter 12, verse 1. Yahuwah, the Elohim of the ages, who created all things, who gave life to them, who gave breath of life to your whole creation, who brought the invisible things to light, who made things are and the ones that are, the appearance, non-appearing and non-being, who lifted up the Shamayim and founded it on the firmament, upon the back of the winds, who founded the earth upon the waters, who put big stones on the abyss of the waters, and the stones will not be submerged, and by all the like oak leaves floating on the top of the water. See, you're not going to understand all of this until you get back to looking at these things again. That's the only way you're going to do it. Because she's talking about water, leaves on top of water, and the river, and the stream, and the rocks, and all the things that people worship. And guess what happens? And they are living stones. Hear the voice, Yahuwah, and keep your commandments which you have commanded to them, and never transgress your ordinance, but are doing your will at the end. For you, Yahuwah, spoke, and they were brought to life, because your word, Yahuwah, is life for all your creatures. He said for everybody. Right, so that word for be clean, he says, who can say that I am made pure and I am clean from sin? To make pure, to keep pure, to cleanse. To make yourself clean and purify oneself. Because if you ain't clean and pure, what's going to happen? He said, you're going to be flattered by people who worship idols. You're going to have other Elohims in your mouth, in your thoughts, in your gogoroth, in your throat, in your neck. You ain't going to bind it around your neck. Your thoughts and your mind going to be in these things. Right? So this is the Nazarene after the Shalakim, how demons get power over men, women, and children. Therefore, demons, as we have just said, once by able, by means of opportunities afforded them to convey themselves through base and evil actions in the bodies of men, women, and children, if they remain in them a long time through their own negligence, because they don't seek after what is profitable for their inner beings, they necessarily compel them to fulfill the desires of the demons that dwell in them. Because Ruach of fornication, you got to guard yourself in the Ruach of fornication. But even though Yehuda grew strong, but Yehuda didn't really deserve it, though. Neither did Reuben as well. That's why I was given to Yusuf. They didn't, though. Because when Yehuda saw a woman, he ain't do what Yusuf did. When Rehoboam saw his father's wife, he ain't do what Yusuf did. Yusuf put his hand up. He said, I'm not doing that. Because they do not seek after what is profitable for their inner being, they necessarily compel them for the future to fulfill the desires of the demons that dwell in them. He said he's going to exalt the tents of Yehuda, that the house of Yasharal don't exalt themselves against Yehuda, right? He's going to exalt the tents of Yehuda first. That the house of Yasharal don't exalt themselves against Yehuda. But did really Yehuda even deserve to be in that position to even inherit that? To even be first? They didn't even deserve that. They necessity compelled them for the future to fulfill the desires of the demons that dwell in them. But what is worst of all, at the end of the age, when the demons are co-signed to Aza's fire, of the necessity of the Ruach also that obeyed him will be himself be tortured in ageless fire together with his body it has polluted. See? That's why Yehuda, when he was with Tamar, he had to confess. He said, man, I would rather be in the fire now and confess my sins to the court than to be in inextinguishable fire in the world to come. So he said, you know what? I'm going to get rid of my demons. And I'm not going to obey my demons and lie and say that those three witnesses ain't me. Because if I don't, what was going to happen to Yehuda if he did that? He would have been covered, been like, yeah, she a liar. Them three witnesses, that signet, that fringes, and that staff ain't mine. She a liar. Right? And then guess what's going to happen? The inextinguishable fire in the life to come. And the demon that he wanted to keep, because he didn't want to confess his sins, he said, you're going to keep your demon. And you obeyed your spirit. And being that you obeyed that spirit, and you being, he said, I'd rather die now. And suffered the humiliation now. That's why Asenath suffered the humiliation now, than rather do it later on. She's like, I'm not keeping this. Right, this is Tahalim Psalms 107, 38 through 43. By his blessings they multiply greatly, and he does not let their livestock diminish. When they are diminished and brought low through oppression, evil, and sorrow, he pours contempt on princes and make them wander in trackless ways. What will happen? He bring you to sackcloth and ashes. But what's going to happen after you do that? But he raises up the needy out of affliction and makes the families like flocks. The upright see it and are glad, and all wickedness shuts its mouth. Eluz kufat sa piyah. They shut their mouth. Why? What did Asenath do when she was getting ready to confess? He said, she didn't want to open her mouth. She just said, oh, wretched woman that I am. She was in trackless ways. And then she threw all her idols and ground up the dust and threw it to the poor. She helped some of the needy come out of their affliction. She threw it out the window. And then she was quiet. She shut her mouth in her room. And for 7 days. And what happened after that? Yahuwah appeared to that woman too. After she confessed her sins. But whoever is wise, let him attend to these things. Let him consider the steadfast love of Yahuwah. He said, man, I heard about an Elohim named Yahuwah. He's great in compassion, forgiving sin, transgressions, iniquity. He won't even impart other people. And he's real gentle too. I'm going to pray to him. And maybe, just maybe, he will see my humiliation, as Asenath said. Maybe he might see me. Right. So that word for shuts is kufat. It means to shut up to death. Because Asenath put on the clothes of her mourning, the black. And what was that? The clothes of her mourning. What was that? Because she wore it for her brother's death when he died. The word for shuts is kufats. The word for mouth is pa. It means mouth, man. It means opening, or it says speech, organ of speech. First Enoch chapter 95, 1 through 7. Oh, that my eyes were clouds of water and that I could weep over you. Why do you think Asenath was crying when he cut her to the heart? And Yusuf was a gentle man, meek man, and he had compassion on her, and he cried. And he said, man, that was way too hard. And he prayed for her and poured out my tears like a cloud of water, and I could rest from the sorrow of my heart. That's what he was doing when he prayed for her after he cut her to the heart. And he saw that she was crying, and he started to cry. He was a meek man. And he knew. Who has permitted you to practice hatred and wickedness? Because Yusuf was like, I can't do this. I can't leave this person in this state of mind. I'll be practicing what they do, what the world do. My judgment may judgment take over you. May the judgment overtake you, you sinners. That's what happens. Do not fear the sinners, you who are righteous, for Yahuwah Elohim will give them into your hands again, that you may pass judgment over them as you desire. Woe to you who pronounce curses that cannot be loosened. Healing will be therefore far from you because of your sins. Now you see why Yusuf is like, I can't leave you in this state. I'm a meek man and a humble man in the sight of Yahuwah. Woe to you who repay evil to your neighbor, for you will be repaid according to your deeds. Woe to you, false witnesses, for those who weigh out injustice, for you will suddenly be destroyed. He said, you know what you like? You like the nations. You're like a little. You be casting all them false accusations and all them false witnesses and weighing out you ain't weighing out injustice, not justice, and upholding in the righteousness. He said you'll be suddenly destroyed. He said you're like nothing to Yahuwah. He said you're like nothing to him. You false witnesses. You repay evil to your neighbor. He said you're like all nations that came out from Adam are nothing to him. You're just like the nations. Woe to you sinners, for you pursue the righteous, for you will be given over and pursued. You men of injustice, and their yokes will be heavy upon you. This is 1 Enoch 99, 11 through 13. Woe to you who spread evil among your neighbors. He said, you just like the nations. He said, you are nothing. You're like nothing. You're like nothing. Ikafat, and you're like what? Tohu. You're like Tahu. You're just like the beginning. Emptiness and chaos and what else? Wasteland. You're just like them. For you will be slain in Sheol. You're going to be, that's a demon. How you get slain in Sheol? The demon is still in your body. So if you spread evil to your neighbors, you got a demon. A shadim. And you're obeying it. And he said, when you obey it, you're going to be thrown in the fire. If you don't seek after what is profitable for your inner being. You got a demon on the inside of you. You got a shadim. You say, Ruach Kina. Ruach Zana. Ruach Saneh. Right? Woe to those who make a foundation for sin and deception. He said, you make a foundation of sin and deception. That's your whole foundation. For no foundation can no man lay, which is Yahushua Mashiach, but you lay the foundation of sin and deception, which means that your foundation is disgusting. Why do you think Asenath had to throw away her foundation? And who caused bitterness on the earth, for by it you shall be consumed. Karma. Woe to you who build your house by the labor of another, and whose building materials is nothing but bricks and stone of sin. I tell you, you will have no peace or shalom. That's what happens when you build on sticks and stones of sin. Bricks and stones of sin. It's all made out of sin. You build a whole kingdom based upon slander, gossip, lying, swindling, extortion, fornication, adultery, evil joking, cruelty. No patience. Right? Because this Dead Sea Scrolls 4Q 257, column 6. These are the paths in the world to enlighten the heart of Adam, man. Straighten out in front of him all the paths of true justice, establish in heart respect for the priests of Elohim and the Ruach of meekness. That's what Yusuf did to Yasin. Of patience and generous compassion. That's what he gave him. Eternal goodness, intelligence, understanding, and potent wisdom, which trust in all the deeds of Elohim and depending on his abundant mercy. Isn't that what Asenath was reciting? All the deeds of Elohim. And she said, perhaps you're going to see me. She was depending on his abundant mercy. A ruach of knowledge in all plans of action, of enthusiasm, decrees of justice, and set apart plans with firm purpose and generous compassion with all the sons of truth. Of magnificent purity, which detests all unclean idols. That means all. That means in the flattery. That even all idols. That's even the flattery of men or women who want to, he say, kiss you, or even say anything to you, and you're not flattered by it. You got to detest all unclean idols, even the words that they say to you that tries to make you sway you their way. Or you're gonna be like Roban. You're gonna be like Yehuda. You're going to be like some of these other people out here and the women who caused the sons of Elohim to fall while they were with their husbands. That's what's going to happen. Adulterous women, adulterous bellied women. With all the sons of truth and magnificent purity, which detest all unclean idols, of careful behavior and wisdom concerning everything, of concealment concerning the truth of the mysteries of the knowledge. These are the foundations of the ruachs of the sons of truth in the world, and the reward of those who walk in it will be healing. Plentiful peace, long life, fruitful offspring, and everlasting barak, eternal enjoyment and endless life, and the crown of kabod and majestic raiment and eternal life. However, the ruach of deceit belongs greed. Sluggishness in the service of justice, wickedness, falsehood. How fast they used to rebuke that woman. You know, he said, she came at him and he put his right yard out. Now, he could have let her get closer and closer, but he said, no, I'm not going to be sluggish in the service of justice. Wickedness, falsehood, pride, haughtiness of heart, dishonesty, trickery, cruelty, much insecurity, impatience, much foolishness. These are all the foundations of stones and bricks of sin. Impudent enthusiasm for appalling acts performed in lustful passion, filthy paths in the service of impurity, blasphemous eyes, blasphemous tongue, blindness of eyes, hardness of hearing, stiffness of neck, hardness of heart, in order to walk in the paths of darkness and evil cunning. And the visitation of those who walk in it, and abundance of affliction by the hand of the Malachia of destruction and eternal damnation and scorching wrath of Elohim that revenges, for permanent terror and shame, because all you worship other gods. Without end and humiliation, the destruction of the dark regions. All nations are like nothing to him. They're like tohu, in chaos. They are in a wasteland. They are empty. And that's what happens. The wickedness ain't going to shut its mouth when you have that. For permanent terror and shame, without end and humiliation of destruction of the fire of the dark region. The humiliation. Maybe Yahuwah will see my humiliation. Because being that I willingly humiliated myself, it saved me from the destruction and humiliation. And guess what? In all ages and the generations, they shall spend in bitter weeping and harsh evils in the abyss of the darkness and destruction, without there being a remnant or survivor for them. Sirach 15, 11 through 20. Say not thou, it is through Yahuwah that I fell away. For thou oughtest not to do the things he hated. Say not thou, he has caused me to err, for he have no need for a sinful man or woman. They are like nothing. They are like tohu to him. Yahuwah hateth all abominations, and they that fear all love it not. He said, I don't love it. He said, Yusuf said, it is an abomination for me to kiss a person or woman with idol worship and worship unclean idols. He said, but is it for you? He himself made man from the beginning and left him in the hand of his counsel. If thou wilt keep the commandments and perform the acceptable faithfulness, he hath set fire and water before thee. Stretch out your hands to whether thou wilt. Before man is life and death, and whether he liketh himself, whether him liketh, shall be given him. For wisdom, the wisdom of Yahuwah is great, and the power, and he is mighty in power, and beholdeth all things. And his heart are upon them that fear him. And he knoweth every work of man, and he hath commanded no man to do wickedly. Neither hath he given any man license to sin. This Proverbs 19:3. When a man, Adam, folly, or Ayluth brings his way to ruin, he rages against Yahuwah. So that's what's going to happen. But notice what Rehoboam didn't do, and Yusuf didn't do, or Yahudy didn't do, and Asenath didn't do. Yehuda confessed his sins and saved himself from judgment. Rehoboam went and prayed for 7 years and mastered the actual understanding of demons and how the fallen fell and how the other sons of Elohim fell. Asenath realized her own sin because of all the idols she worshipped. And she removed these things from her life and threw them out the window. She did. And had she not done it, what do you think would have happened? She would have turned and attacked you. She would have attacked you. She would have attacked everybody. Why? Because if you're not willing to have a humble heart, you're going to attack somebody. You're going to think, you know what you're going to be thinking? You're going to be thinking that the time going to come, they that killeth you would think they do Yahuwah's service. That's going to be you. You're going to be thinking that you're doing Yahuwah's service by taking out the person who just cut you to your heart. Like they did Ishbosheth. They thought they were doing Yahuwah's service. Two men killed him on his bed while he was resting. They thought they were doing Yahuwah's service. They thought they were. He said, that time gonna come, that they that killeth you gonna think they do Yahuwah's service. Not even knowing that what they were doing was not Yahuwah's service. He said, your only rages against Yahuwah, right? So that word for ruin is selav. It means to twist, to pervert, to distort, overturn, to ruin, to subvert. That's what's going to happen to you. They're going to bring you away to ruin. Because when Yahuwah brings you away to ruin, right? The word for rages is sa'af. It means to be sad, raw, to be out of humor, to be sad looking, to boil up, angry. That's what's going to happen. When a man or Adam's folly, Ayluth, brings his way to ruin, his heart rages against Yahuwah. It boils up. It is be out of humor, to be sad, to be raw. To be angry, fret, sad, worsening, like, be wroth. And then when you see the thing about it though, when you join yourself to people who are outside Yahuwah, and then your life and your household get brought to ruin, then you want to laugh and joke, not even knowing that the people that you join yourself to are of Shaitan, and that's the reason why your house has been brought to ruin. Because you're thinking, these things are happening because of you. It's because of the people you join yourself to. And they won't repent. They refuse to repent. So you know what that brings? This is Qahalath, Ecclesiastes chapter 7:14. In the day of prosperity, be good. Be joyful. In the day of good, be good. In the day of adversity, Rasha, consider. or Ra'ah. Yahuwah has made it's the one Zah as well as the other Zah. So the man Adam may not find anything that will be after him. He said, I ain't gonna find nothing after that. After I start swinging my sword. So that word for to consider is Ra'ah. It means to inspect, to perceive, to consider. To appear, to present oneself. To be exhibited. To cause to see. To look intently. To approve, behold, to consider, discern within yourself what is going on within oneself. And it could be something so small, but that little small thing can be turned into something great. He's like, that's a small thing. No, that actual small thing can be turned into something great. One little seed can turn into something great. It says, Yahuwah has made the one as well as the other. That's Zah, right? Because the Zah. Sword, knife, rest, law, word, perfection. Behold, the sword, knife, rest, law, word, perfection. That's why I think Yusuf cut her to the heart. Anybody didn't even pray, and he said, let her get rest, though. Let her be enrolled in your people. Yahuwah has made the one as well as the other. That word for well is lama'ah. It means close side by side. Side is along with. Along with, right? Yahuwah has made the one as well as the other that he may not find anything afterward. That word for anything is ma'umah. That means anything, a speck. Something that is with a negative nothing, a fault. You won't find a ma'umah after you cut with the sword and not the sword. The sword, knife, rest, law, word, perfection. You won't find no fault, no nothing, no speck. You won't find anything. Right? So that word for Tahalim 85, 8 through 13. Let me hear what all will speak, for he will speak shalom to his people, to his Kasid. And let them not turn back to Qahalath. Surely his salvation, or Yasha, is near to him, those who fear him, and the kabod may dwell in our land. Steadfast love and faithfulness meet. Steadfast Kasid and Amath meet, and Sadak and Shalom kiss each other. Faithfulness, Amath, springs up from the ground, and righteousness, Sadak, looks down from the sky. Or the Shamayim. Yes, Yahuwah gives what is good, and our land will yield its increase. Righteousness, Sadak, will go before him and make his footsteps a way. Right? So they said, let him not turn to Qahalath and have confidence. Because once you take on shalom and kindness, don't go back to foolish folly. They say Aydah, having confidence in foolishness and your stupidity. And trust in silliness, and have confidence in folly. He said, don't have confidence in that. Have confidence in peace and kindness. Because if you have confidence in peace and kindness, then you produce peace and kindness in other people. But if you have confidence in silliness and trusting and having confidence in your stupidity and your folly and your Aydah and your foolishness, then you're going to produce that in other people. That's going to be your confidence. So you need having confidence in shalom and kindness is important. So that word for me is pagash. He said they use pagash for me. Why? Because the ox knows his owner. A donkey is a kamor his master's crib. A shore knows his owner, and a kamor his master's crib. But Yashral don't know. They don't know. It means to encounter, to come in contact with, to concur, to meet together. Because kindness and truth meet. But if they don't got kindness and truth, You might as well say this if you don't have kindness and truth. An ox knoweth its owner, and a donkey is master's crib. But Yasharal don't know who their master is. Yusuf did, though. When he cut her to the heart and she started crying, he said he was a kind-hearted, tender, gentle person and meek. But he said righteousness and peace kiss each other. Why do you think Yusuf didn't kiss her? Because she had no righteousness, she worshiped idols. And she had no shalom in her heart, because she worshiped idols. Or if a kiss is nashak, it means to what? To come put together, to do what? To kiss. Why do you think Yusuf wouldn't kiss her? But then it also says to touch gently. He touched her gently afterwards. After he cut her. Then he touched her gently. And then it also means what? To fastening up, to equip with weapons. Right, this is mostly Proverbs 21 through 24. Whosoever pursues righteousness and kindness will find life. That's why Yahudy said, I'll come to you might have life and have it more abundantly. That's why Qahalath's name meant life giver. She was the mother of all living. So when you join yourself to a woman who says she's like Qahalath, like Eve, like Qahalath, like they say, she's supposed to have righteousness and kindness on the inside of her heart in order to bring life to the house. But if she doesn't have that, then it's going to be in chaos. It's going to be tohu. And you're going to be like nothing. Like Yahudy's going to look at you as nothing. He said, you're like nothing in his sight. You're just like nothing in his sight. You're just like emptiness, like tohu, chaos. A wise man scales a city of the mighty and brings down the stronghold in which they trust. That's why you think he brought down Isabel. Why do you think Asenath had to willingly humiliate herself? Because she trusted in her unclean idols. Whosoever keeps his mouth and his tongue keeps himself out of trouble. He said, you keep yourself out of trouble. Scoffer is the name of the arrogant, and a haughty man or woman acts with arrogant pride. Right? This is Psalms 32, 6 through 9. Therefore, let everyone who is conceived offer prayer to Yahuwah at the time he may be found. Surely in the rush of great waters, they shall not reach him. He said, they that hear my word and do it, it's like I liken them to a certain person. A person who built their house on a rock. You are a hiding place for me. You preserve me from the trouble. You surround me with shouts of deliverance. Say, I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will counsel with my eye on you. Wherefore kindness is conceived. You say, why you keep repeating? This is the book, he say, why you keep repeating it? He say, why you have these things in there for a while? He's like, yeah. There is a reason. Because everybody has their own reason, right? Right, so this is 1 Corinthians. First Corinthians chapter 13 and verse 1. 1 Corinthians chapter 13 and verse 1. 1 Corinthians chapter 13 verse 1. If I speak with tongues of men and of malakim, but have not a haba, I am a noising gong and a clanging cymbal. If I have all nabi prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all amuna, as so to remove mountains, but have not a haba, I am nothing. So a lot of people say they got love, a haba. Let's see. If I give away all that I have and deliver up my body to be burned, but have not a haba, I gain nothing. A haba is patience. So do you have patience? And kind. Do you have conceit? Do you have kindness? Are you conceit? Because if you ain't conceit, Kindness and truth meet. Righteousness and peace kiss each other. So if you ain't got kindness, what good are you? I made that person cry. I made that person's heart like that. But then you have no kindness to actually cover it. You're just going to leave them like that. What dwells the love of Yahuwah in you? Ahava is patient and kind. Ahava does not envy or boast. So you do envy somebody. Are you envious of somebody right now? Are you boastful in your endeavors and your selfish ambitions and your goals? Are you boasting while somebody else suffers? It's not arrogant or rude. Are you arrogant? Overbearing of your own accomplishments. Are you an arrogant person? Because that's what Ahava is. Are you arrogant? Because that's one of the things that Yahuwah hates. Are you arrogant? Or rude? Are you rude? Can people understand what you're saying? It does not insist on its own way. Do you just do your own thing your own way? He said, one can teach at the bar all day. But he says, what good is it if you don't have no kindness and truth in your heart and no righteousness and peace? What good is it if you don't have no ahava? It is not irritable or resentful. So if you're irritable and resentful to what? To other people, then you don't have no ahava. Because what does irritable, resentful make you do? Not want to be around them. Not want to be with people. That's what irritable and resentful does. Resentful is somebody who treated you unfairly or mistreated you. So therefore, do you have resentful and irritable? You have irritable things in your mind, your heart. There's no ahava inside of you. So one can have all that knowledge, but it's like a book of Acts. They're always looking to hear something new. But in actuality, he's like, it does not rejoice at wrongdoing. So do you do wrong in your life and you still rejoicing when you're doing wrong? You rejoicing at wrongdoing. Why do you think the people were weeping when you killed Yahusha? Why do you think they were mourning for Yahusha as one mourning for their only son? But everybody else was rejoicing, saying crucify him and getting ready to have a celebration afterwards, after they killed the son of Yahuwah. But rejoices with the truth, because righteousness, kindness, and truth kiss each other or meet. So you got to be kind and you got to have a ma. Kindness and truth meet. Righteousness and shalom kiss each other. Love, ahava, bears all things. So this is the reason why people quit on their life. They quit on their relationships. They quit in their household. They quit everything. Because you can't bear anything. Believes all things. He said, I don't believe everything. There's no way in the world that can be. That's not. No. Logic says this. It said believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. So how much ahava you got? How much love? Love, ahava never ends. As for prophecies, they will pass away. You know, people, you're going to boast about that. Yeah, you know that. Once the prophecy come to pass, how much love you got? How much ahava you got? As for tongues, they will cease. You become quiet and mute. Your language, you become mute. As for knowledge, it will pass away. You can have all the knowledge in the world. As a matter of fact, you be called teacher. Man, everybody love to call you teacher. That's going to eventually pass away. For we know in part and we never in part, but when that which is perfect comes, the partial will pass away. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became mature, I gave up childish ways. For now we see in the mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I have been fully known. So now Amunah, hope, and ahava abide. these three, but the greatest of these is ahava. Because if you ain't got ahava, you ain't got love, all this stuff is in vain. But what's going to make you endure all things? Ain't nothing. He said, it ain't nothing to stop doing something. What's going to make you go further? That's the whole point. Right? This is the book of Hebrews, chapter 10, verse 23. Hebrews, chapter 10. Hebrews, chapter 10, and verse 23. Let us hold closely the confession of our hope without wavering, for he who has promised is faithful. And let us consider how to stir one another to love, ahava. He's like, forget all the other things. They stir one another to ahava and good works. Right. So that word for kindness, the word for godly is Chesed. It means faithful, kind. Kudash one, faithful ones, merciful ones, kind. Right? This is 1 Enoch 94, 3 through 5. And now I say to you, the righteous, do not walk in the path of wicked and violence, nor in the path of death, for the wages of sin is death. And do not approach them, lest you be destroyed. They had a choice. Rehoboam had a choice to not go to Bilhah. Yahudy had a choice not to go to the prostitute that was Tamar, who was pretending to be a prostitute. He had a choice. Yusuf had a choice to not kiss Asenath even though she worshipped idols. He had a choice. Because the idols that she was worshiping was destined to be destroyed. He had a choice. But love and choose yourselves righteousness and a pleasing life. You have a choice to choose what you want to do. Sadiq, Sadaqah, or Eluz. Saneh, Kina, Ruach Kina, Ruach Zanah. You have a choice. Ruach Eyuz. You have a choice. Everybody has a choice. And walk in the paths of Shalom. That's the whole point. So that you may live and have joy, Simcha. And hold fast close to my words and your thoughts of your heart. And do not let them be eradicated. For I know that sinners will deceive men and treat wisdom wickedly. So that she will not find a place. What do you mean she? Because that's what she is. She's like a companion. She's like she. Because they don't want wisdom to find a place in you. So therefore they treat wisdom, hakma, wickedly. So they will never find a place in you. So you will have a haba in your heart. Love. So they'll say, all nations are spittle and like nothing. They can never get the ruah. But in actuality, who can measure the ruah? Because they don't want you to have a haba in your heart. They want you to be full of evil. But guess what it says? So that she may have no place, and all kinds of temptations will not cease. It ain't going to stop. Why do you think none of those temptations, why do you think all those things are going to keep coming? They ain't going to stop. You're going to continue to keep going. You got to get a habit in your heart. Because you chose, once you choose destruction don't just leave overnight. How long it takes destruction to come? When something get wiped out by destruction, how long it take for you to rebuild that? How long it take for people to come back from that? From the recovery process? Some people it takes a short period of time. Some people take a longer time. But that's why he says, ahaba, love is patient. That's why he says love is patient. But some people don't have no patience. Right, this is mostly Proverbs 3, 19 through 24. Yahuwah by wisdom founded the earth, and by understanding established the Shamayim. So he founded this whole place. And by understanding, he established the Shamayim. He created it by Hukmah. By his knowledge, the deeps broke open, and the clouds dropped down dew. They did. It dropped down dew. My son, do not lose sight of these. Keep sound wisdom and discretion. Why? If you don't lose sight of it, what happens? You will always know that Yahuwah made the Shamayim in the earth and the sea and everything in it. That's why Asenath had to recount it to her mind, because she was worshiping dumb, unclean idols. Yahuwah, the one who made the rivers and the leaves to flow on top of the rivers that flow down the stream. Yahuwah, the one who made the rocks and the caverns and the trees. But once you lose sight of the beginning, then guess what happens? You're going to worship something else. Yahuwah, who made the oath, the Bahima, the Ramiz, and the Degah, and the Tahanim. Yahuwah, who made the Shamayim in the earth, and all everything in it, who creates the thoughts in man and woman. See, when you understand that, who allows the thoughts in the man and woman to have the choice to cast it down and bring it into the feet of Yahushua Mashiach? Who gives life and understanding to all creatures and all beings? Who allows the hairs of a man to grow, and who, only one who can allow a man to grow taller and to shrink them down. My son, do not lose sight of these, and keep sound wisdom and discretion. What do you mean? That's sound wisdom. Because they don't want you to remember this. Man, that's just basic. That ain't nothing. I told you. Anything after Bereshit, when you start to look at before Adam fell, anything after that is just utter chaos. It's just ratifications, changing, removing things, bringing things back. But once you get past that, you can start to see. Once Adam fell, it was over. Then Yahushua had to come in the form, the very same way Adam was, and Yahuwah had to come in the flesh, just like in the beginning. And he had to take control of his garden again. He got to get back his authority back. Because they ruling over, the animals are ruling over Adam. And the animals ain't supposed to be ruling over Adam. But you know why animals rule over Adam? Because they forgot that Yahuwah made the Shamayim in the earth and the sea, and they forgot that Yahuwah owned them all. You forgot. And they will be light to your soul. It says, my son and daughter, do not lose sight of these, and keep sound wisdom and discretion. And they will be light to your soul, your nefesh, and adornment to your neck. Because if you don't, you're going to have other things in your throat, your gogoro. Then you will walk on your way securely. Then you're going to walk and be securely. And your foot will not stumble. He said, I don't want to stumble. All you got to do is go. Yahuwah made the Shamayim in the earth and the sea and everything in it. And the deep broke open. And the clouds dropped down dew. My foot ain't going to never slip. But guess what people do? They lose sight of it. It's something else. If you lie down, you will not be afraid. When you lie down, your sleep will be sweet, right? Right, so this is the book of, why? Because this is important. This is the whole point, man. I know some people say, but this is the book of, this is the book of Titus. Titus 2:1. But as for you, teach what accords with sound doctrine. That's the whole point. Because if you don't, what happens? What's going to happen if you don't teach? What's going to happen if you don't? What's going to happen? This is 1 Timothy chapter 1. 1 Timothy chapter 1. 1 Timothy chapter 1 and verse 8. 1 Timothy chapter 1 and verse 8. Now we know that the law is good if one uses it lawfully, understanding this, that the Torah is not laid is not laid down for the just, but for the lawless and disobedient, for the unrighteous and sinners, for the not kudash, and profane, and those who strike their fathers and mothers for murder, for those who strike their fathers and mothers, for murderers, the sexual immoral, men who practice homosexuality, enslavers, liars, perjurers, and whatsoever else is contrary to sound doctrine. These are all behaviors that come with you forgetting about Yahuwah in the beginning. In accordance with the truth of the Amath of Elohim, the truth of the Barak of Elohim, which I haven't been entrusted. Why? Because these are all behaviors that one has to be entrusted to govern and destroy and to break down and to tear down. These are all behaviors. That's all you're doing. That's sound doctrine. It's not sound for somebody to be rejoicing in wrongdoing. That's not sound. It's not sound for somebody to be eating food after they commit adultery and fornication. What are you eating food for? That's not sound doctrine. That's why Shaul said, don't even eat. A swindler? You're going to eat food and you're a swindler. The last thing should be on your mind is eating food when you're an extortioner and a swindler and an adulterer and a fornicator. That's the last thing that should be on your mind. But some people do. They still eat. And you wonder why people are in the state they're in. I'm finna go eat me a nice 7-course meal. And you just did a whole bunch of sin. The last thing on your mind should be food. And that's the whole point of that. But it says, right, this is the book of Titus chapter 2, Titus chapter 1 and verse 8. Titus chapter 1 and verse 7. Actually, Titus chapter 1 and verse 9. Titus chapter 1 verse 9. He must hold firm the trustworthy word as taught, so that he may be able to give instruction in sound doctrine. Some people say a whole bunch of things. And also to rebuke those who contradict it. That's all it is. You're just contradicting. Why are you rejoicing and cracking jokes when you already have about 10 charges against you in the Torah? And you're a slanderer. Why? But people do that. Verse 10. For there are many who are insubordinate, empty talkers. They like tohu and chaos. Tohu. He said, I count all nations as nothing. And emptiness, like tohu. So those who are like this are just like the nation. He said, you are nothing in Yahuwah's sight. You don't have them on the inside. And deceivers, especially those of the circumcision party. Yasharal and Yehuda, especially them. They must be silenced. All wickedness shuts their mouth. They have to. Since they are upsetting whole families. See, people say, man, my whole family, my family, same thing, what they saying? Since they are upsetting whole families by teaching for shameful gain. How are you upsetting a whole family by teaching for shameful gain? Because you're taking their money and you're messing up their lineage and their inheritance that they're supposed to pass in their family. In the Song of Song of Solomon, what did Song of Solomon say? My mother's children are upset at what? Me. At me. For they made me a slave for them. They must be silent, since they are upsetting whole families by teaching for shameful gain that what they ought not to teach. And that's what they do, right? We're going to get out of that. But it says, Yeah. So that word in that same verse, it says, if you lie down, you will not be afraid. When you lie down, your sleep will be sweet. So that word for founded is yesod. It means to be found, fixed, established, to lay the foundation. He said, no foundation can no man lay, which is Yahushua Mashiach. By the word of Yahudy, the Shamaim were made. The seed is the debar. He said, why would you build your house of stone and brick of sin? Why do you think Yahushua had to die? That's why it had to be a sinless stone. That had to be start the whole thing. A sinless stone and brick started the foundation. And that sinless stone and brick that started the foundation, it couldn't be built with sin on as the foundation. It couldn't. It had to be built with stones and bricks of righteousness and kindness and mercy and gentleness. It had to be built with that type of foundation. That's why relationships crack. Because you ain't build it with love or haba. You got to build it with a haba, foundation of love and mercy and kindness and love and health. And then by doing that, then you can build on top of it. But beware how you build on top of it now. Because it's going to be tried by fire. It's going to go through the fire. And whatever remains, but you yourself going to be saved though. But understand, you're going to have to get rid of it. People say, nah, I'm going to leave it there. Even though it's built, Yahushua built it on a sinless life and no deceit. But I'm going to put it and build it on the foundation that he already laid. That makes no sense at all. You can't. It says to be established, to founded, to fix and seat themselves close together and sit conclave, to establish, appoint, and ordain. To intensely be found, to settle and consult. Right, so that word for my son, do not lose. That word for lose is lose. My son, do not lose sight of these. Keep sound wisdom and discretion. That word for lose is lose. Lamet wu zin. It means to depart, to turn aside. My son, do not turn aside. To go wrong, to go crooked, to be perverse. My son, do not be perverse. To be lost from view. Don't become lost from view. Don't become perverse. To depart. To depart, to turn aside. Don't. And do not lose sight. The word for sight is ayin. That's the whole point. That's the whole point. Exalted ayin, right? Don't lose sight in your mental and spiritual faculties, your mental qualities, your eye, a fountain. Humble. Don't lose sight of it. Don't lose sight or ayin. Don't lose ayin. Don't lose sight in your spiritual faculties. Because once you do that, then you're going to be doing things opposite. Right? It says, my son and daughter, do not lose sight of these and keep. The word for keep is netzar. It's netzar. It means to preserve, to keep, observe, to keep close, to guard, to protect and maintain and obey. My son, keep, or netzar, sound wisdom. That word for sound wisdom is sushia. Sushia. The word for sound wisdom is tushia. Tushia. The word for sound wisdom is tushia. It means sound, efficient wisdom. Keep tushia. Sound, efficient wisdom. Keep tushia, ability or substantiate, support, and undertaking and understanding, enterprise. My son, do not lose sight of these and keep sound wisdom. So that word is tushia, for sound wisdom. To keep yourself, keep efficient wisdom within oneself. My son, do not lose sight of these and keep, or netzar tushia. Keep tushia, your ability and understanding. So what that word for it says, by his knowledge, the deeps broke open and the clouds dropped down dew. He said, keep sound wisdom. And that word for, what word is that? This thing did that again. Did it again. Proverbs. Yeah, that's our word for discretion. It says keep sound wisdom, and discretion. That word for discretion is mesmea. It means purpose. Keep sound tushia and purpose. Mesmea. It means discretion, purpose, plan. Sagacity, witty, invention. But it says keep purpose, keep sound tushia, or netzar tushia, mizma. That's what it is. Mizma. Keep sound wisdom, and it say tushia mizma. Mizma. This is Aleph Yukanan 2:24-28. Let what you heard from the beginning abide in you, because that's the foundation. Because no foundation can no man lay, which is the Yahushua Mashiach, which is the bar. That's what the teaching, the whole place was at Tohu. And then he created light, and light came to be, or higher, and the bar laid the foundation, the sinless word. The sinless word with no deceit. It was laid a foundation with no deceit. Let what you heard from the beginning abide in you, and if what you heard from the beginning abides in you, then you too will abide in the Son, the life of the house, and the Father, the strength of the house. Why? Because that is the foundation. And this is the promise he has made to us, eternal life. I write these things about those who are trying to deceive you. You can have an exalted iron, or you can be the ones who use crafty counsel. There's many ways you can deceive somebody. It ain't just with speaking to the bar. Because some people can deceive people by speaking to the bar, and some people can deceive people by their behavior. There are many ways you can be deceived out here. Because people's behavior can deceive you. That's why the underhanded thing that people do in Akab, or the adulterous belly woman who do everything covertly and produce the Ruach Kinah in someone else. These are all ways you can be deceived. It says, I write these things about those who are trying to deceive you, but the anointing you receive from him abides in you. You have no need that anyone should teach you, but his anointing that teaches you about everything, it is true and is no lie, just as it has taught you, abide in him. And now little children abide in him, so that when he appears, you may have confidence and not shrink from him in shame at his coming. Why? What makes a person shrink at Yahushua when he comes back here? When Yahuwah comes back here at his coming? There are many ways. It's just like Adam and Chloe, when they sinned, they had to hide in the bush. They had to hide from him. Why? Because they knew what was going to happen to them. Judgment, shafat. It's just like anything. Because if you don't have that in your heart, if you don't walk in Aydah, what's going to happen? You're going to change into, you're going to be a Kudash narcissist. Like he say, a Kudash narcissists in Yahuwah. He said, what is that? And when you purposely disobey something and then play victim when somebody tells you you're wrong. It's called a Chdsh narcissist. He said, man, Chdsh narcissist, yeah. A person who practices Torah, but then don't practice Torah. And then play victim when you convict them on them. My son and daughter, go on thy business at Aydah. So should I be beloved of him that is approved. He said, you be a beloved of him that is approved. The greater thou art, the more humble thyself. And thou shalt find favor before Yahuwah. That's the only way you're going to get it. You got to remain Aydah, I say Kana, Sana, Anua, Ana. You have to remain Sana. You have to keep yourself in the fall. You have to stay humble. Aydah. That's the only way you're going to get more things revealed to you. Ain't nothing going to be revealed to you if you ain't humble. The greater thou art, the more humble thyself, and thou shalt find favor before Yahuwah. Many are in high places of renown, but mysteries revealed unto the Aydah, the meek. For the power of Yahuwah is great and honor with the lowly. You know when you're honoring Yahuwah and you ain't humble. Seek not out things that are too hard for thee, neither search for things that are above thy strength. But what is commanded thee, think thereupon with reverence. For it is not needful for thee to see with thine eyes the things that are in secret. Be not curious in unnecessary matters, for more things are showed unto thee than men, women, and children understand. Right, this is the Odes of Solomon. It's the last thing. I'm finished. This is Odes of Solomon, Ode Shaloma. Actually, pseudo-philo. Pseudepigrapha. Pseudo-philo, Volume 2, Pseudepigrapha, Volume 2, Pseudo-philo, Volume 2, Chapter 60. And in that time, the Ruach of Yahuwah was taken away from Saul, and an evil spirit was choking him. And Saul sent and brought Daud, and he played a song on his lyre by night. And this was the song that he played for Saul in order that the evil spirit might depart from him. Darkness and silence were before the world was made. Tohu and Bohu, chaos and wasteland and emptiness. And silence spoke. He says, and silence spoke a word. Because that's what happened to Absalom. She was in sackcloth and ashes and dark clothes, and she spoke, and guess what? She spoke without saying a word. Darkness spoke a word, and silence spoke a word. And the darkness became light. And the darkness became light. Ruach Marakaf al-Panim. And Yahuwah Elohim said, let there be light, for all nations are as nothing and emptiness to him. And guess what? Then your name was pronounced in the dawning, in the drawing together of what had been spread out. And the upper of which was called the Shamaim, and the lower was called the Aydah. And the upper part was commanded to bring down rain according to its season. And guess what? And the lower part was commanded to produce food for all things that have been made. So where are you? You are the lower part that's supposed to produce the food on the earth. Right? That's you. And after these was the tribe of your Ruachs made. And now, do not be troublesome as one created on the second day. But if not, remember Tartarus where you walk. Or if it's not enough for you to hear that, through what resounds before you, I sing to many. Or do you not remember that you were created from a resounding echo in the chaos? But let the new wound from which I have been born rebuke you to Ka. But guess what it says? From which, after a time one born from my loins will rule over you. Because out of Yahudy became the chief ruler. Matter of fact, out of Daud came Shalom. And his whole kingdom was established in the death of 3 men. Matter of fact. And guess what? From which, after a time, one born from my loins will rule over you. And as long as Daud sang, the Ruach spared Saul. See, these are all a part of it. But just like anything. So we look at all that. We look at Yahushua Mashiach. Look at Yahushua Mashiach, the true light of life, the true ruler of all beings on earth. For he is the second Adam. Knowing that he rules over all creatures, and that Yahuwah Elohim gave him authority over the fish, sea, fowl, every creeping thing over all the earth, and to rule over all. For I will have you know that the head of Yahuwah is, the head of Yahushua Mashiach is Yahuwah himself. And the head of each, the man, is Yahushua Mashiach. And the head of the woman is the man. And all these other things that people created, knowing that these things were already here before the foundation of the world. And it's already been like this from the foundation of the world. For the earth was without form and void, was at the feet of Yahuwah. And darkness over the face of the deep. Because the earth is his footstool. And Yahuwah Elohim said, let there be light. And there was light. And for all beings and all human beings to neglect that, is to neglect even the very light itself from even coming inside of them. For these are all even when we find themselves in tohu and bohu for the rest of their life, until they understand what it means to sit at the feet of the one who sits in the highest Shamayim. So we live in this world, we are not of it. And as long as we live in the world, he said we walk, even as Yahushua walked, who did no sin, neither was deceit found in his mouth. And if you do sin, and you do have deceit in your mouth, we have an advocate with Yahuwah Elohim, Yahushua Mashiach, the righteous. He said, for no condemnation is to them who are in Mashiach Yahushua, who walk not after the flesh, but after the Ruach Qahalath. For the Ruach speaks expressly that in latter times men will depart from Amunah and give heed to seducing demons and doctrines of demons. And these doctrines and spirits and these demons will rule over the hearts and minds of men. For all things were created by Yahuwah's Yad, his right hand, and created and established the ends of the earth, and gave all things life by his Yad, by his fingerprint. And even as a tree, when you cut it in half, you can see the fingerprint right there on the tree. For that's Yahuwah's fingerprint. And all these things that Yahuwah has done and created, one has within themselves. So as we move forward in his likeness, in his image and likeness, one must walk in the love that he has, and not walk in the commandments of one's own commandments, in the commandments of men. If you walk in the commandments of men, you'll find yourself in transgression. This is the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 11, and verse 1. This is the last thing I'm doing. Qahalath, Ecclesiastes, chapter 11, verse 1. Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days. Give a portion to 7, or even to 8. When did Asna pray? She prayed on the 8th day. Matter of fact, give a portion to 7. How long did Rahuban pray? He was doing it for 7 years. Matter of fact, what did he do for 7 years? He found out about a lot of things. And the Malachi told him a lot of things after he sinned. But guess what it says? For you do not know what disaster may happen on the earth. You don't know. You do not know. And guess what? If the clouds are full of rain, they empty themselves on the earth. Because you're at the bottom. Because you're supposed to produce food. As rain and snow come down from Shamayim, so does the Barbie that goes out of my mouth. But guess what it says? And if the clouds are full of rain, they empty themselves on the earth. And if the tree falls to the south or to the north, in the place where the tree falls, there will it lie. Now you see why, when Asna was cast out, or Isabel was thrown out the window, where that tree fell, because it was a big tree. Matter of fact, it was real high too. And the tree falls to the north and the south, guess what? The place where the tree falls, that's where it's going to lie. It's going to stay right there. So we look at all that. We look at Yahushua Mashiach. We look at everything that's happened. And it's just like the Malachi. When they found Nebuchadnezzar, he said, hewn down the tree. Cut it down. And leave a stump. Because when you cut it down and you leave a stump, then it can grow back. And you can barak yourself into 7 periods. And you can say, Yahuwah rules in the kingdom of men. And he said he rules in the kingdom, the Malkuth of men. He give it to whomever he will. And he didn't give it to you. He didn't give it to me. He gave it to Yahushua Mashiach. He gave it to him. For the meek shall inherit the earth. The Anu shall inherit the Eretz.